When you're ready. Good evening, everyone. The hour being 7 p.m. on Monday, March 25th. I'd like to call to order the City of Laconia City Council meeting. Before we go any farther, I'd ask if Councilor Haynes would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Councilor Haynes. We're joined by our city clerk, who will serve as our recording secretary, Katie Gargano, and I'd ask her to please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Here.
Counselor Susie,
Here.
Counselor Hoffman,
Present.
Counselor Haynes,
Here.
Counselor Bogart,
Here.
Counselor Felch,
And here.
Mayor Hosmer.
Here. We have a quorum present. We're also being joined this evening by our city manager, Kirk Biotti, our finance director, Glenn Smith. Moving on to item number 6. Welcome. Under our council proclamation, we have a proclamation this evening for Parkinson's Awareness Month. Is there anyone here for that? Well, come on up. Come on up. All right. Hey. Come on up here. Let's do a stand. So,
Give us our marks.
okay, your mark's right over here, wherever. Who's the most important person here? Just take it.
You can kick me out of the way.
Stand over here when you face the crowd that way. Okay. All right, so come on over here. You're in the wrong angle. Yeah, come on. Paparazzi never gets it right. All right.
No way I'll make it.
So, welcome everyone. I'm glad you could make it.
Yeah.
We have a proclamation here from the City of Laconia to commemorate Parkinson's Awareness Month. I'll read it. It's not too long. Okay? Let it hereby be known to all citizens of the City of Laconia that I, Andrew J. Hosmer, Mayor, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2024 as Parkinson's Awareness Month. Whereas every 6 minutes, someone will hear these 4 words: you have Parkinson's disease. And whereas nearly 1 million people in the United States are living with Parkinson's disease, and this number is expected to rise to 1.2 million by the year 2030. Whereas Parkinson's disease is the second most common neurodegenerative disease, producing both severe motor and non-motor symptoms. And whereas nearly 90,000 people in the United States are diagnosed with this disease each year, and more than 10 million people worldwide are living with Parkinson's disease. And whereas there is no treatment to slow, stop, or reverse the progression of the disease, nor is there a cure. Whereas Parkinson's disease costs the federal government and American families $58 billion every year. And whereas every day advocates and caregivers work to improve the lives of those affected by this disease, including the people living with it and their families and friends. Promoting awareness and education is key to finding a cure. Now, therefore, I encourage the citizens of Laconia to learn more about Parkinson's disease and the benefits that can be gained through education, exercise, and engagement. Given under my hand and the seal of the City of Laconia this 25th day of March, in the year of our Lord, 2024. J. Hosmer, Mayor. How are you? Move it over with our left or shake it over?
Good to see you as well.
Thank you. Here you go, guys. Thank you very much for this. Don't leave me hanging. Oh, sorry.
Okay, that's good, that's good. We'll give you a whole year. We can do that, we can do that. Good to see you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 7, which is our acceptance of minutes from previous meetings. City Council regular meeting minutes of March 11th, 2024. They were distributed to the members of the City Council on March 12th, 2024, with no corrections or changes submitted to the clerk. The minutes will be accepted as distributed. Agenda item number 8, and 8A, recommendations for appointments to boards and commissions. If it's okay with, go right ahead, Counselor Susie.
I'd like to move that to our next meeting, publish the list ahead of time.
So we're gonna, that's a motion to table this item, non-debatable.
now.
Is there a second? Counselor Cheney, all those in favor of tabling this item to our next meeting? It's 6 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Thank you. The next agenda item is number 9. This is an opportunity for citizens to make comments for matters not on the agenda. If there's a matter not on tonight's agenda that you'd like to speak to, now would be the appropriate time. Just come right up. Anybody in the back corner? Nobody? Okay. We'll move right along to 3 public hearings. And if it's all right with the council, perhaps move all 3 of those items up until immediately after committee reports. Committee reports, liaison reports, okay? So we'll move the hearing so folks that are here for them can speak to it, okay? So agenda item number 13A, which is a public hearing for Resolution 2024-07, acceptance of funds from a charitable trust, the Brunkart Grantor Charitable Lead, in the amount of $15,000 to fund the development of a firearms range for the Laconia Police Department. Notice of this public hearing is made available in the March 14th, 2024 edition of Laconia Daily Sun, posted at Laconia City Hall, Laconia Community Center, Laconia Public Library, and the offices of the SAU. Action on this item may be taken up a little later on this evening. I'd like to open the public hearing at 7:08 p.m., and if anyone would like to speak to this item, now would be the appropriate time. Seeing no one has come forward, close the public hearing at 7:09 p.m. Agenda item number 13B, which is another public hearing. Request from the New Hampshire Boat Museum to lease dock space at the city-owned Weirs Docks. Notice of this public hearing was made available in the March 14th, 2024 edition of Laconia Daily Sun, posted at Laconia City Hall, Laconia Community Center, Laconia Public Library, and the offices of the SAU. Action on this item may be taken up under unfinished business this evening. I'd like to open the public hearing on this matter at 7:09 p.m. If anyone would like to speak to this item, now would be the appropriate time. Thought I saw somebody leaning forward back there. Is that a head fake? No, or you're coming up? All right, great. Welcome.
Hello.
Just introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm Martha Cummings. I'm the executive director of the New Hampshire Boat Museum, and we are the owners of the Miss Lauren that we are seeking to have a leased dock space at the Weirs. And just wanted to thank all of you for looking at that request and taking it into consideration and meeting with our staff members down at the dock.
Can you maybe tell us a little bit about those of us who were unable to make the dock visit? Would you let us know a little bit about your business?
Yes. So the New Hampshire Boat Museum was founded in 1992. We have moved around the lake a little bit for the last 23 years. We've been in Wolfboro and have a boat ride over there, very similar to the Miss Lauren, which is a replica 1928 vintage style hacker craft. The Millie B has run very successfully in Wolfboro, giving the public rides and offering private charters since 2005 with the museum. And the museum, our mission is to inspire an understanding of the boating heritage of the fresh waterways of New Hampshire. And we've been doing that seasonally for, as I said, the last 23 years in Wolfboro, and most recently purchased a year-round facility in Moultonboro, and so are looking forward to being able to extend that season to the public all around the Lakes region and really the state of New Hampshire. So, thank you all for.
How much space would you be looking for? Do you mind taking any
For-
questions?
I can also bring my colleague up here to answer any very specific questions related
On the
to
spot,
the dock
absolutely,
space. I'm going
yes,
to put him right on the spot. Come on down, Ken.
Hi, would you
Hi.
introduce yourself?
Yes, my name's Ken Lang. I am the Assistant Manager for Boat Tours and Operations for the New Hampshire Boat Museum. In terms of total dockage that we would need, it's about approximately 30 feet. The reproduction in Hackercraft, 1928 Hackercraft, is 28 feet in length, so a couple of feet on each end will be more than sufficient for us to be able to get in and dock and run our tours from that particular area.
And is it your intention to reserve how many spaces on the dock and for how long a period?
Well, depending on how the lease is written, we're just looking for a 30-foot space. Now, it would only be used during the day. The boat would live at Northwater Marine at night. So for a period, say from 9 to 6-ish, we would reserve a 30-foot section, and we'd run our tours. Each tour is approximately about an hour. We'd run maybe 6 a day. And so that it would make sure that we'd have a spot when we come back in, and we'd have an opportunity to be able to load people in and out, and maybe a little kiosk there as well, just to set up so that when people came in, we could check them in and so forth.
And we would remove the kiosk. You know, we would bring it over, bring it back, so nothing would remain on the dock.
Okay. Would you mind taking a question from Councilor Cheney?
Sure.
What sort of draft do you need for these, or this boat?
This boat, it draws about 2 feet. We prefer a little bit more, but worst case,
assume.
depending on the time of the year, you know, obviously that fluctuates with the water levels in the lake, but 2 feet would be probably our minimum draft that we would require.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone else have any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else like to speak to this matter during the public hearing? Seeing none, no one else to come up here, we have received, the council has received a number of emails. For the record, one from, holding one from Bob Conrad, who is, I believe, the owner of Northwater Marine and Weirs Beach, who supports the town allowing the New Hampshire Boat Museum use of the Weirs Beach town docks for the vintage Hacker craft, the Miss Lauren. In addition, we have an email from Paul Goodwin. Paul is the owner of Watermark Marine. He writes to wholeheartedly support the request from the New Hampshire Boat Museum to lease dock space at the Weirs docks for boat tours of the area. And finally, I have an email here from Ryan Cardella from East Coast Flight Craft. Who seems to have reservations about this. And he has given us a 3-paragraph email. Looks like he's in opposition to it as I read through this. So, that being said, I'd like to close the public hearing at 7:14 p.m. Moving on to agenda item 13C, which is the public hearing for, 13C, which is public hearing potential purchase by the city of Laconia of a portion of 601 Main Street, Laconia. Notice of this public hearing was made available in the February 29th, 2024 edition, of the Laconia Daily Sun, posted at Laconia City Hall, Laconia Community Center, Laconia Public Library, and the offices of the SAU. Action on this item may be taken up later on this evening. So, that being said, I'd like to open the public hearing at 7:15 p.m. And now would be, invite people to come up and speak. If you'd like to come on up, come on up. Come on. No, I'll let them come first. I'm gonna let them come first. welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
First, wanted to take a second to thank you all for the opportunity.
And
to
you are Melissa?
Yes.
Yes, and Melissa, you live where?
I live on Pleasant Street in Laconia.
Terrific, and this is Tyler?
This
Your
is
husband?
my husband, Tyler, yes.
Hello.
Welcome. It's nice to have you.
Thank you. So again, thank you for the opportunity to speak on the proposal for our restaurant, which is the Darling. That would be in the front 1/3 of the purchase of the 601 on Main Street. So I did just want to start off by explaining how we got here to Laconia. And that story really starts in 2020 at the beginning of the pandemic, but my family has had a house in New Hampshire in Moulton Borough for about 10 years now, and we've been coming here ever since. But when the pandemic did hit, we ended up staying in my parents' house for about 6 months, and during that time we really got to exploring the surrounding areas. And actually we did move around to some other cities within the country after that, but we did ultimately decide that Laconia was going to be the place for us to put down roots. So we did come here to stay. We bought our first house here. We got married here, and we hope to open up a business here and eventually raise a family as well. With us putting down roots, we did start to look deeper into one of our dreams, which is owning a small business of our own, and that would be a restaurant. And the reason that we're choosing to open a restaurant comes from our mutual desire to open something like this, and Tyler's very long experience within the restaurant industry for about 20 years now. So something that is important to us to focus on with this proposal is the quality of service and providing a really great experience for everyone within the town. So when we decided that this was going to be our forever home in this town, we started to search for different opportunities to hopefully make that dream a reality. And we searched around and had visited multiple places to see if there was going to be a good fit for us. And that is when the Antique Center was brought to our attention. We were really thrilled about this opportunity when it was presented to us, because the thought of being integrated directly into the main street of the city just really seemed like a perfect fit. We live within walking distance of the city, being on Pleasant Street, so that is one of my favorite things to do, especially when the weather is nice and when friends and family do come to visit. We always say, you know, let's walk into the town, because I'm really excited to show off the place that I live. So we're really proud to be here, and seeing all of the new shops that are coming into the town is really exciting to see. So we hope to one day point to our small business and be really a part of the community in that way. And of course, with the building being where it is on the main street, it goes without saying that the building itself is really beautiful with its corner lot and all of the full windows in the front. However, the entire building was much more than what we needed for our restaurant, so that is how we were introduced to the idea of the city wanting to purchase the back half, 2/3 of the for the Colonial Theater. So this really helped us solidify our dream of this building further. It made us just more realistically in reach for both parties to do what they needed to do with the space. We both want what's best and have great intent for the city as a whole to be able to benefit from this, so it seemed like a win-win. Just to kind of propose what this restaurant is and what we hope to bring into town, we are proposing the restaurant to, of course, call it the Darling, which will serve Italian and American style cuisine. The menu is being crafted to be approachable for a wide range of budgets, and one of our objectives would be to offer something for the theater crowd as well. For families to be able to come in and enjoy a meal together before a show, or be able to come in and have a dessert and drink after the show. We believe that this is an area of opportunity, and we saw a need for this type of restaurant. But we also want to have something that does offer that cozy hometown feel to it. What I mean by that is having the aesthetic of a twist on like modern vintage. So you can see, flipping through the proposal, that we want to offer a mix of truly vintage pieces with that modern fixture as well, lots of greenery throughout. We do recognize how important this building has been to the community and the businesses that have come before us in this building. So we really want to honor that and keeping this vintage theme intact. And we also want to offer the appeal, though, of something that is fresh and modern that can be around for generations to come. And from an economic standpoint, just wanted to touch on that really quick. We want to help bring more jobs to the city, and we anticipate at least 20 plus jobs being created with the start of this restaurant and hoping to grow that number as we grow. And we also know the impact that a restaurant can have on a city. With both Tyler and myself being from small cities, we understand what typically draws folks into a town is the food and the shops. So the hope is that the restaurant can bring people downtown, stay downtown, ultimately driving more business and foot traffic to the other local businesses in the area. So we just want to make the pie bigger for everyone, not take away from anyone. So just building on this kind of flywheel effect that the city has already set in motion with the Colonial, just building on this momentum. And we're really excited to see our city and the businesses within it thriving for generations, hopefully. So that is our proposal for the front half of the building.
Thank you, Melissa. Tyler, would you like to, tough to follow up.
I think she covered it. I'm here to help answer any questions anybody might have, or.
So your background is in restaurant management?
That's correct, yes. I moved to New York. I've spent 15 years in fine dining and hospitality in New York City. I work for Shelley Fireman, who's a well-known restaurateur in New York. He has 5 big restaurants in Midtown. But I work side by side with him and his team to help open new restaurants, help them create menus. So yeah, I've been in the industry a long time. I feel I've learned a lot working with Shelley, and I feel ready to open our own restaurant here in Laconia and bring everything that I've learned from New York to town here.
Can you give us some sense of 20 jobs or more as you grow? Rough ranges of wages paid to people in a restaurant like yours? Not asking to hold you to anything, of course, or
Sure.
specifics, but what's the average wage that people in the kitchen are going to make, or to hire a chef or wait staff, bartenders, things like that?
Right now, we're projecting hourly wages for our kitchen between $20 and $27 per hour. The front of the house, because they're tipped employees, they will be paid a tipped wage. So that's kind of what we're at right now.
So if you're projecting, I don't know how you project this necessarily, but if someone were coming in to wait table, a professional waiter, what type of wage do you think they might expect if you were running at, not 100% capacity, but you were building towards your full capacity over how many days a week? 5 days a week?
5 days a week, that's correct.
What would someone expect to earn on a?
Probably $900 to $1,300 a week, waiting tables.
And any estimates from your perspective as to how much you might, the initial upfit investment on the portion of the building that you're purchasing might be? There's a renovation cost.
For renovation costs, we're looking around 150 to 200 per square foot when it's all said and done.
Yikes. How many square feet is that? Do we know?
We're 15, so including the basement, we're 15,000, so 8-ish. Be theirs.
So the portion that you're looking at is 8,000 square
Yeah.
feet?
Does that sound right, Tyler?
Yeah, sounds about right.
I thought it was like 4,600.
4,600 square feet?
I'm not.
Without the
100%
basement.
positive.
Without the
Yeah.
basement.
Yeah, so, yeah.
How much?
Well, it's 46, but then they have the basement, which would match that, so it's 2 floors of it, living versus non-living. So it'd be 4,000 of what we'd call living if it was living space, plus the basement comparative size. So it'd be in the 8,000 range for total size.
Okay. So that'd be somewhere in the neighborhood of $500,000 in upfit, anticipated upfit renovation. Okay. Any questions for these folks? Okay. We may have some more questions as they come up later on, so if you can hang around, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Come on up.
Hi there.
Welcome.
Nice to meet everybody. Name's Frank, last name is Day, if that's germane to anything. Nice to meet my new neighbors. My wife and I live on Pleasant Street as well, so in the spirit of full disclosure, there's nothing I enjoy better than a good Italian meal. Now, this being said, I have just a little bit of cause for pause. So The heartwarming story here, in my case, is as follows. In November of 2020, my wife passed away very suddenly and very unexpectedly. At my age, when you're a widower, you're going to be pretty content to stay a widower because nobody wants to jump on a romantic treadmill at that age. For what it's worth, my wife died wearing her dress uniform. In our later years in retirement, we were members of the Honor Guard at Florida National Cemetery, Bushnell. She went into the ambulance in her dress blues. She never got to come home.
Sorry for your loss.
Thank you. Now, at that point in a fella's life, you just say, well, life is going to be different now. It's not going to be what I expected, and you're certainly not looking for anything romantic. However, sitting over there, the center of my universe, is Holly, who was someone I knew for a very long time. I worked as a handyman at her ranch. Her husband passed away not quite a year after my wife did. Nature took its course. No one was more surprised than we were. All our friends knew it, but how that gets us to Laconia and how it involves you folks. Holly has very deep roots here in New England in general, in New Hampshire specifically. She did her student teaching at the Mechanic Street School when it was still a school. She was teaching at Parker Hancock School the day it burned to the ground over in Franklin. So we found ourselves at a crossroads in life as to what to do. And she looked at me one day and said, "Take me home. I want to go home." She wanted a big Victorian house, and she wanted to come back to New England. So now we live in a big Victorian house in New England. Happy ending, right? I thought so. I still think so. Here are our concerns. Cost of living here is high. What I don't want to see happen, for professional credentials, I'm an engineer, and I appreciate on more levels than most people would probably realize what a gigantic project rehabbing that building and repurposing it is going to be. And I would hold no one accountable to the penny for an estimate because it is a massive project and there are just such a tremendous amount of unknowns. If you were asking me as an engineer to estimate a job like that, the best I could do was give you a range and say cross your fingers. So I am not making any disparaging remarks about any estimates that may have been made. I just hope everyone realizes there can be a lot of monsters hiding in those four walls. I want people to be successful. I really do. I want to see Laconia flourish. I really do. But in the spirit of self-servingness, we've only been here a little over a year. Our taxes have already been increased $2,000. And my concern is, if this doesn't go the right way, I may have to take Holly away from her dream house because somebody might have bitten off more than they could chew. This is really what I want to speak to. I would ask that Mr. Mayor and the council think very hard about the dollars and cents, not just the amounts, but where are they going to come from? Because it doesn't do any good to have a great theater and a good meal if nobody can afford to live here anymore. I'd really like to know where the revenues are going to come from and what the cost is. And I really hope that the only way to get those revenues is not by increasing all the property taxes. Just felt it needed to be said because
Appreciate your time, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
you're welcome. You have a good night.
Hello, my name is Quinn Brouillard, Ward 4 voter. So I personally oppose the purchase of the property so that it can be run as a private or a public business. So I'm not a socialist, and we do not live in a socialist nation. a socialist nation is where the government owns and operates the means of production. So it's not that I care if other nations try it. I'm just personally opposed to the United States trying it. I find myself questioning, where will this end? Will this...
Sir, I hate to interrupt people. I want to give you your 3 minutes.
Yep.
But if we can keep it to germane to what the public hearing is about and not a political philosophy.
Oh,
I think
absolutely.
that would save a lot of time and serve you well.
Sure. Yeah, I just question where it's going to end. Are we going to start owning pet stores?
Again, sir, I would wish you would keep your remarks germane to what the public hearing is about.
Yep. Yeah, I just question where this is going. Are we going to start, the city going to operate a pet store next?
Would you like, are you being facetious?
No, this
Or
is...
would you like a serious answer?
It's kind of a rhetorical question.
Fair enough, so why don't we keep it on something non-rhetorical and germane to what the public hearing is
Absolutely.
focused on?
And I start to question whether or not this theater is going to sustain itself. In 40 years, when the Colonial Theater is again in need of major repairs, will it have earned enough revenue to cover such repairs, or will the taxpayers again need to pay for the facility to be repaired? And maybe someone is thinking we are using grant money to pay for such projects. Well, isn't that still tax dollars? Or is that money that is just printed by the federal government,
Sir?
increasing
Sir,
inflation?
sir, this is it, okay? We're gonna keep it on this piece of property, is what we're talking about, not a federal diatribe or diatribe on federal currency issues. Let's just keep it to this, okay?
So where do the funds come from? The American Rescue Plan, correct? Some of the funds?
Yes.
Is that tax dollars, do you know?
Continue on, sir.
Okay. So I won't get into the national debt, which we all owe personally $100,000 each.
I would appreciate it if you didn't, and
And
I will
women
tell
and
you, you've got
child.
30 seconds left of your 3 minutes.
Federal tax dollars are supposed to be used for the common good of people. Well, I had a lot more to say, but
Perhaps if you can reduce it to writing and hand it in to our city clerk, we'd be happy to make copies and disseminate them among the council. How's that?
sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi, my name is Johanna Halprin, and I'm a producer at Powerhouse Theater Collaborative. We're the nonprofit community theater that performs at the Colonial Theater, and we wanted to first thank the City of Laconia for their foresight and investment in the Colonial Theater to date. I think all of us involved at the Colonial have seen the amazing benefits that it has reaped for the city. Since the theater was renovated, our group alone has involved over 300 individual participants that have appeared on stage in at least one show, and some of them have performed in as many as 15 shows. And we have welcomed, just our group alone, more than 10,000 patrons to the Colonial. Our performers range in age from 6 to 80 plus. And during our rehearsal process, these actors come 3 times a week to downtown Laconia. Sometimes there are as many as 70 people in a production, so those are 70 people coming 3 times a week during the week to the city and patronizing the businesses, maybe the new Italian restaurant. And then when the show goes up, they bring their friends and their family to see the show. And from the audience perspective, when they come to see those shows, they see a magnificent theater, and we often have patrons come up to us at the back of the house and say, this is the most beautiful theater in the state. And we appreciate that. What the patrons don't know is that the backstage has some things that are lacking in it to making it really one of the best theaters in the state. There aren't any dressing rooms, and so these actors, which again range from 6 to 80 plus, have to find a corner of the space where they can make a makeshift dressing room and change. Often that includes them going into the basement, and it's dusty and not ideal down there. It has low ceilings. We've had people hit their heads. We've had people have issues with asthma and allergies. And there also is no stage left wing, and that is because when the renovations were done, it required building a firewall for a fire-rated corridor for the emergency exit on that side. So having a wall there creates a lot of traffic problems with actors and set pieces. You can imagine trying to, do a leap off the stage. If you're dancing into the left wing, it's not possible. You'll crash right in there. So these problems and others, including traffic issues with touring buses, and I can let other people speak to those if they want, because I'm mostly involved with the on-stage issues, could be all solved with the incorporation of a portion of the Antique Center. And once the space is developed as something else, in other words, once someone else buys it and creates it into an office space or, another business, it's going to be lost forever as a potential benefit to the Colonial Theater. So we just wanted to speak, in favor of this. And we really thank you for considering its purchase. And we'd also like to welcome you to come and see one of our shows. And if you'd like to, you could speak to some of our participants. We'd also be happy to give you a tour of backstage and show you some of the things that we think that the Antique Center could solve for us. So thank you.
Thank you, Johanna. How many shows a year do you put on there?
We put on 5 big-scale musicals or plays there a year.
Those are 5 individual shows, not just 5 nights.
Oh, yes, yeah, 3 times. Each show performs 3 or 4 times. And I, for one, was one of the people that was, I'm an arts person. I was definitely for the renovation of the Colonial. I saw that it was a big hole in downtown. But even though I was for it, I was a little skeptical that it was going to work as a real, driver of business to downtown Laconia, and I've been blown away by how much has happened since it's been renovated. So, we put on, I thought we would maybe sell 250 tickets to a show. We've sold out the Colonial on more than one occasion, which I never thought would happen in only a few years of being a brand new company.
Thank you. Any questions? Would you open to questions if there are any?
Sure.
Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jake Crum. I'm the Director of Venues for Spectacle Live, the managers of the Colonial Theater. Thank you so very much for having us here tonight. I'm also a former resident of Laconia. I was born and raised here, went through the school system, graduated, and now I'm getting to do what I love in a lot of the venues and here back in my hometown. So thank you for that. I just wanted to mention that we at Spectacle Live do support this project and moving forward with it for a number of the reasons that Joanna has just mentioned. The theater itself has been an amazing addition to this town. From when I was a child to now, it's been a near black and white difference. And so with this addition to the Colonial Theater, there's a lot of challenges that will be or could be taken care of that are seen right now in the current building. The biggest one being the loading dock being on Stage Right and on Canal Street is probably one of the biggest challenges that that theater faces. But just wanted to mention that we do lend our support in this, and if there's any questions that we can answer, we're definitely happy to answer and help in any way we can. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Jake. Hello.
How's everybody?
Great.
Okay. I don't have anything written. My name is Joyce Kelly. I'm a resident of Laconia. I participate in events at the theater, and I can't even begin to tell you how great it's been for my family, for the community, to have this wonderful place to go and to see things and to participate in as a community. So I sing in the Power Chords Broadway singing group, and I've been in that since it started, but before that in the Christmas Carol too. So I can just tell you just as totally personal stories. I have two friends that live 2 hours away, and they're like, hey, so-and-so's coming to the Colonial. You want to go? And they come to here so we can go to the show. So it's been really great. I bring my mom, who's 86, to events that she never would be able to go to. So I think that it's really important for our town to support this project, and I hope that you'll consider it. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Joyce.
Yeah, sure.
It's an opportunity.
Hello, Patrick.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, general public. Many years ago, I was on a committee that looked at purchasing the Colonial Theater for the city. We were very close to doing that, but for various reasons, that stopped. A few years ago, the interest was revived, and the city made the decision to purchase this theater. It was not an easy decision by any means, and there wasn't a unanimous support throughout the community. But it has been, I think, a great success and a positive for the city. Because it is so important to the city as a whole, not just the downtown, but the city as a whole, it's important that we support it, that we make it the best theater it can be. And part of that is to add the facilities that it really needs, that it lacked from the beginning. We've made a substantial investment in our community with this theater. It is wise to protect that investment and to make that investment even stronger. We have examples of where we've done that, and we can see that. We look at the middle school and how wonderful that is. We've seen what's happened with the high school and the improvements we've made there. We can do this, and we can do it right. This theater is very important to all of us, not only to Laconia citizens, but to the whole state of New Hampshire. It's one of the best theaters in the state. It has much to offer. We owe it to ourselves, to our community, to our state, to make sure that it becomes even better and stays that way. So I strongly support the investment of the community in this. With regard to the restaurant, I think it's a challenging idea, an interesting idea, and I'm encouraged by the fact that there's some young people willing to make a substantial investment in our community. I look at how Hector's has grown over the last few years with the theater opening up. Anthony has done a wonderful job of improving things at Hector's. Hector's has always been a wonderful place to eat, but Anthony has done a super job. This is another way that we can get another super restaurant here in town that's going to help everybody, including Anthony, because the more people you have coming down here to dine, they're going to be looking for different places to enjoy those restaurants. And so I think that's a positive as well. But the most important thing is the protection of the theater and making it better. So I strongly support the investment by this community in that purchase. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome.
Hi, my name is Barry Wilk. I have lived in Laconia for the last 27 years. I retired a couple of years ago from New Hampshire Ball Bearing. And I just want to state to the council what a great job you guys have done bringing the town back and revitalizing the town, especially the downtown area. It really is. My wife and I have been to many, many events at the Colonial and absolutely love it. And like one of the previous ladies has suggested, my family comes up. They come up for shows here, and they live in Massachusetts, so they come up just to spend a weekend with us, just so they can go to the show. In addition to that, I think, so the Colonial has turned out to be like a foundational business in town, something that draws in people. And once they come to town for the show, they get to see all the other things that are available on Main Street. The restaurant that's being proposed will do the same thing. It's another foundational business where people will come to dine, not just before and after the show, all year long. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights. They'll come to the show, they'll come to dine, and they'll see the little antique shop across the way, or the coffee shop just up the way a little bit. And all of a sudden, the town will get more and more. It'll be like a self-fulfilling prophecy. It will start to build on itself. We moved out of Amesbury, Mass. 27 years ago. And when we left, downtown Amesbury wasn't in the best of shape. We left, and then within 5 years, their team, just like you folks, did an outstanding job. Now, I couldn't afford to move back there. It's like the go-to place, one of the go-to, there's Newburyport in Amesbury. So I'm all for the restaurant. I think it's a great idea. It will create another footprint, another foundation for the town. And the ad, I didn't know what was going on backstage. I guess they don't have a lot of space, but anything that can be done to enhance the Colonial, I'm all for it. It is a wonderful add to the town. You guys done a great job. Hopefully we can just take it that next step. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, I'm
Good evening.
Alfred Colum. Been here 44 years, and the Colonial is fantastic. You guys have done a beautiful job with that, and I say continue on. You either grow or you go in the other direction. So there's a lot of people out there that's supporting you and love the idea. So do I. Just wanted to let you know.
Thank you, Albert. Anyone else? Don't be bashful. See how easy we are? We're pretty good listeners.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
My name is Norm Paquette, resident of Laconia. I think it's a great idea, great proposal. Restaurant would be fantastic. Everyone supported the theater, and it's really great, and things have done very well. And the investment in Laconia, that was a great idea. But I think it comes to a point where do we keep going? Where do we stop? As a taxpayer, it's getting expensive to live in Laconia. Who's going to maintain this generations to come? What are we leaving for them to keep paying for at the end? I don't think the city's role is to keep buying real estate. I think we should take care of what we already have, not what we don't have. Again, I'm all for the growth of everything, but as a taxpayer, when does it stop? We have a parking garage that we haven't done anything with yet. We're still kicking that around, and that brings to my mind the ownership. To own part of a building, not all of it, that does concern me. I hope if this goes through, they do well. If they default, then what happens to the city? What do we do with that front part? Who owns that? How are we gonna be saddled with it? Down the road, that building, I don't know what the cost is gonna be, none of us do. I'm sure it's gonna be very, very expensive. I don't know where the money's coming from after the grant. I understand from reading in the paper where I get my news, it's from the Rescue Plan Act. I'm not sure how that ties in with that. I thought that was COVID to help out with COVID issues. I didn't know this is a COVID issue. If it is, so be it. And I'm also curious, is it the pricing? Has the city received an appraisal on what this property is worth?
No, we've not done an official appraisal.
But there is
We have not done an official.
nothing official, but do we have an
appraisal.
estimate of value?
We have an estimate, but we didn't, normally what we do if we're buying, certain times when we buy property, we do go out and actually pay for an official large-scale appraisal, and that hasn't been done, but we've done it more through what we're seeing with real estate and that type of not an appraisal, but an estimation of what the cost would be.
Like-kind transactions
well,
on
yeah.
Main Street based on a price per
Will
foot.
the city be doing that?
We've done that. So,
Have you done
we've
appraisal? Will the city be doing an appraisal?
Will we be doing, no, I think we have the numbers we need right now. There had been, at this point, no plans to do a professional appraisal on the building, no.
Okay. Can you share those numbers that you have for the value?
I'm happy to, yes. I don't have them at my fingertips right now, but yes.
And so with the city owning the back portion, the restaurant owning the front, what type of ownership will this be? Will this be a condominium type situation? How will that be?
We do a lot line adjustment. We own the back. It's owned by a private, if it goes through. The front half of the third of the building will be owned by a private entity. So we have, that's,
So it'll be separate, and there'll be no condo.
Totally
You
separate.
just Laconia is responsible for the back, and whoever buys the front's responsible for the front.
same as it is on the first floor of the Colonial Theater right now when, in the next 2 years, when the storefronts are sold, or they're gonna be sold and, or leased out.
Well, again, I think everything's been moving forward great. I just think it comes to a point the city needs to step back and take a breath, take care of what we have, not what we don't have. Everybody that's come forward, pro and con, the comments are great. But I think it's time we just step back and take a breath a minute and take care of what we have.
Thank you, Mr. Prokop.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and
Welcome.
Council. My name's Mark Templeton, Laconia resident. I'm very limited on what I've seen or heard about this whole proposal. I'm not sure the details of what the purchase cost is, or I heard there's something about $800,000 for a grant, free money, so to speak. And then I hear all this talk about the renovation costs, and that's a lot of money that has to be involved in building or taking ownership of that building. The idea of having the Colonial having expanded area sounds great. I just got a lot of reservations over spending money that we don't know how much we're gonna have to end up spending. I think there's a lot of turmoil of what kind of restaurant or whoever buys that first part, if they own it, whether it's a defunct business or, anything's gotta be better than having another Family Dollar or a really low income revenue business. So any kind of enhancement, you can do that downtown, be great. The one comment I have about the Colonial and all the renovations is great. I walk my dog there every day. If you could fix above the marquee, the little decorative glass is one poked out above the door. If you could fix that, would be awesome. Thanks.
Jake, you hear that?
Oh,
Yeah, okay. Maybe we can get that fixed. That would drive me crazy too. Anyone else?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Most of you know me. Ruben Bassett. I own a few businesses downtown, some real estate. I love the idea of another restaurant. I'm all for it. We need lots of them. I do have some concerns about kind of the way that this has been pitched. I think it was said earlier, the idea of a public-private partnership has yet to be proven, that it works in this town. The parking garage is a big one that comes to my mind, so I have some concerns about that. I have yet to hear any numbers on the impact to the Colonial. That everyone's saying, we need this, we need this, we need this. Are there acts that aren't coming here, and how many are those that aren't coming because of the lack of, so I'm not against the concepts of it. I'm all for a restaurant downtown. I'm all for the Colonial getting what it needs. I know firsthand the economic impact that the Colonial's had. But I do have reservations about a single building being owned by both the public and private. I'm all for investment in downtown, but we've seen it before. We're a heavy investment and it doesn't quite work out. I wish, if it goes through, I wish them nothing but the best, but what does happen if it doesn't? So to me, it is about the numbers. I mean, if we're talking about the economic impact that the Colonial has, what is the economic impact of buying this space? Like, obviously, we have a problem on Canal Street. I hear a lot of what's being said, but I have concerns about how we're going about it. And so, anyway, good luck in making that decision.
Thank you.
Warren Clement, Laconia resident, 51 years. For 37 of those having a business in downtown Laconia. I'd just like to clear up a couple of things. The first floor is 14,000 square feet. The buildings that are downtown that have been sold, and I've sold 5 of them, averaged $156 a foot. The first floor of the of Blooms is 14,000 feet. It's $1.2 million, that's $85 a foot. So you're paying substantially less for this building than what is the average. There is one building which will be made into two buildings. The front half will be the restaurant, the Darling. The back half will be the city's. Firewall goes up in between them, and now you have two buildings. So to worry that the city's going to get stuck with a restaurant doesn't fit. There is a basement in it, and the basement is pretty dungy, so I don't think you can look at that. In the second floor, railroad trains now can be used for storage for the theater, for a lot of other things. So, but just, and this is mostly for the people that are here, that the real numbers are $85 a foot. The real thing are two different buildings. And if you want the city to grow and the theater to grow, we have a wonderful opportunity. Thank you. Did I say I was the realtor so that people understand? I have business cards. And I also know that they're gonna have a fundraiser to replace that piece of glass.
What about refrigerator magnets?
Evening.
Good evening.
My name's Thomas Scribner. I've been around Laconia for 60 years. I was at the matinees in the mid-'60s, you know, full of kids on the rainy summer afternoons. I think everybody loves the Colonial, that's pretty obvious. I think you have two issues going down, and one is supporting the arts community and the investment already made in the Colonial. The second is that you're going to own a piece of property that you're proposing that these folks get to open a business. And they haven't opened a business before. The common man has many. To me, it would make more sense to have proposals once the building is in shape to have that process of having a restaurant, is to take proposals and decide who would be most appropriate. Also, I don't hear tonight the numbers that the group here needs to understand what they're committing to. So you're saying 1.2 million is in the paper, but you're not saying that here tonight. That hasn't been, you know, stated that that's the number. So you buy a 1.2 million that has hazardous materials and who knows what else, you know, maybe a problem of structural issues, then you're spending $1 million backwards to get it to where then you're gonna try and, you know, establish the theater and whatever else in it. So I would, I just think there's no need to rush. I don't think there's need for action. I don't think you have the information to take action this evening. And I think in fairness to the people that actually put the money forward outside of this grant, they need to be able to understand what they're paying for. So I would ask that there be a proposal with the numbers, with a plan, whether it's done by a study group or, you know, with after an appraisal, that there are actual numbers. And so, you know, I think it should be presented to the community in a vote. I don't think it should be a small subgroup here. I think it should be presented to the city as a vote on the overall project. Thank you.
You mentioned you'd like to see it go out to proposals for the front half of the building.
I would.
Who would put the proposal up?
What I'm saying is, I would like to see, you're talking about renovation of a building.
No, I'm just asking you who would put the proposals out. It's not.
Well, you see, the
it's not
city-
as if the city would have to own the whole building.
Well.
And then ask, which I don't think we're interested in doing. I know we're
Well,
not
you're
interested.
looking, in other words, you're looking for a business partner to purchase this
It's
building.
not a partner. We want to buy, I think there are certain folks in the city who are interested in buying the back 2/3.
Okay, well, then you're talking about two separate parcels. And whether these folks buy it or whether it goes on the open market.
It is on the open market. The building is for sale now.
Okay, so they're one restaurateur or, you know, prospective restaurateur that would buy it, but there may be others, say the common man or
I
someone
would
else.
suggest to you that this has been for sale for a while, and a number of people have looked at it. No offers have come in that I'm aware of. And I will say, you keep bringing up the common man. I, in fact, did approach Alex Ray about coming to downtown Laconia.
I don't prefer the common man, I'm just saying.
Hold on, I'm just saying that you keep referring to it. So I'm saying, I asked him about coming to downtown Laconia if he would be interested, and he said emphatically, no.
Well, that's him, but it's very competitive.
That's his money too, that's
It's
him.
hard, well, it's these folks' money, the 1.2.
I get it, so
whatever,
he said no. So this idea that we open it up to a bid and set up an RFP process, it's a little far-fetched based on my
Maybe it
perspective
is.
on it
I don't
now.
know the process like you know the process, but I do think it's fair to say people should know how much this is gonna cost.
I couldn't agree with you more.
And I think they should be able to choose whether there's, in a vote, I think they should be able to choose.
There are some communities that
whether
do
they
that. There are
support
some
the-
communities that do that regularly. Those would be SB2 towns, right, where they have a deliberative session. The city doesn't. I mean, so it's put on the shoulders of these people sitting at council table to make some of these decisions. And until that form of government changes, and we could, but until that, they have the responsibility to build the budget and make decisions about expenditures and revenues.
Okay, but as we sit here tonight, does anyone know if there's hazardous materials in that building?
Yes.
Okay, does anyone know the cost of
Yes.
dealing with any of that?
If what is there will be remediated by the current owner.
And what about like the roof and structural issues? Like, people know all of these things. All these numbers are known.
So this is the public hearing portion. When we get into the unfinished business, these are matters that will in fact come up for
Okay,
discussion.
well, I'm saying I think that the community deserves to know
I
the
couldn't
facts.
agree. I couldn't
Okay?
agree with you more, sir, and I don't think anyone up here disagrees with you. So I think your points are well taken.
Just sharing a point of view.
I appreciate that.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Going once? Twice? Okay, we will close the public hearing at 8:02 PM. We'll move along to item number. Okay. I'm going to fill up some water, and I'm moving on to council comments right now. Would you handle council comments
Sure.
while I get some water?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Council comments.
Bruce?
All right, I'll start. Just a point of information, the New England Wolves hockey team won their Northern Division and will
Can we
represent,
keep the talking down, please?
and will represent the city of Laconia in the Frozen Four playoffs that are going to be in Providence, Rhode Island this weekend. So congratulations to them. The only other thing I have is hats off to our emergency responders. Early spring storms are nothing that anybody wants to deal with, and they did a fantastic job as far as that is concerned. So hats off to all our emergency responders. Anyone else? Mayor, I'll turn it back to you.
Any other council comments? Nope. How about committee reports?
Just took care of.
How about liaison reports?
I have one, Mayor.
Thank you.
The Heritage Commission met on Wednesday, and they did give a demolition permit to 1921 Parade Road, which is the South Down Shores. That's the building structure in the barn that will be demolished. However, there are many things inside the building that will be saved for the New Hampshire Alliance of Preservation, and there will be a marker put on the property designating the importance of the people that own the property since the 1700s. So that,
Thank you.
that's the
Any other
Heritage
liaison
report.
reports? Seeing none, moving on to agenda item number 19, which is citizens' request to comment on current agenda items. Similar to the public hearings we had earlier, if there's an agenda item that you would like to speak to, now would be the appropriate time. All right, seeing none. I'll go back to agenda item 15. Sorry to be a little disjointed there. Which is the mayor's report. There are really two issues I'd like to speak to tonight. The first issue is the current status of Laconia State School property. I'm sure many of you have kept up with what's going on. This property was anticipated to be, the latest date was March 13th, where the developer was going to close on the property. We found out early in March that not only were they not going to close on the property on the date, March 13th, but that the primary lender, the primary funder, bank, that was going to finance that purchase price and maybe even some initial stages of remediation and demolition, their letter of commitment expired and they chose not to renew it. So the developer at this time does not have, as I understand it, does not have a primary lender in place to close. It is very much unclear now when this property will actually be sold. We in the city, and I want the taxpayers to understand this as much as anything, the city has not expended any funds on this project. And it's not our intention to do so. But what the city staff has done, and our city manager, both city managers, has made themselves available, their staffs available, for any questions or concerns that either the state has or the developer has. And I want to thank them for always being ready and available to assist the developer and the state as issues have arose. I feel quite certain that the city of Laconia has fulfilled all of its obligations, the bare minimum, but have probably gone above and beyond and working on issues of memorandums of understanding, working on right way, sharing our knowledge and expertise within City Hall with the developers. We've done everything we could. Certainly the biggest issue for us right now is housing in the city. And we need housing. We need it desperately. We have a 1%, less than 1% vacancy rate. We know the impact it has on our community. Certainly, as proposed, this development would be a real shot in the arm. And the plans, as proposed, not only would beautify this area, add needed housing units, but also do it in a respectful manner in light of the history of the Laconia State School and that property. Really, right now, we have waited almost 2 years for this to come to fruition. With the demise or the marginalizing of the Laconia Lakeshore, the Lakeshore Redevelopment Commission, and this project being taken over by the state of New Hampshire. So we can't really shed any light because we don't know. We only know what we're told, but right now it's, I don't know the future of this development, unfortunately, and that saddens me greatly, and we're very disappointed. Secondly, and I know what most people are here tonight to talk about the opportunity that's presented itself in regards to 601 Main Street. And I think a lot of really good questions have been raised, some that we can answer straight on and very directly, as certainly Warren Clement did. There are some things that best estimates really about all that we have right now. And because of the number of variables associated with any sort of renovation or redevelopment project. I mean, it's just a fact that there are. When I first joined the City Council in 2018, the commitment by the City of Laconia to the renovation of the theater was a topic of discussion, and I will tell you that when I sat over in that seat in Ward 6, I was very skeptical about that project and the funding stack and the new market tax credits that were promised that didn't show up, and you know, it was one story after another. And I had some really serious questions about the viability of the project and the cost of the project and the impact on the city. But thankfully, there are two things that happened there that really persuaded me. And one was the leadership of Ed Engler, who talked about investing in community assets. Much like our library and our playing fields here in the city, we have community assets that strengthen our community, that create an environment that people are proud of. There are places where people can gather, they can exercise, they can educate themselves. Those places will never, nor are they ever expected to be profitable in the business sense of things. It is a community asset that lives on for generations. And we will continue to make investments in our parks, in our schools, in our track, in our beaches, in our library, because that's who we are. We're not looking to strip our community of assets because they might take an investment. Now, mind you, we have to be smart and prudent with the money, because any way the public funds comes to us, it does originate with taxes somewhere, whether it's long-term debt at the federal level, which generations will have to pay back, whether it's a bond the city has to take, which will be our obligation as a city and as taxpayers. There's no such thing as free money. Someone is owed at some point. How it's paid, when it's paid, I think those are all really good questions to ask and to vet the answers. So Ed Engler was the one who talked about a community asset, and that's what he thought of as the Colonial Theater. It's a place where we could gather face to face as a community, celebrate the arts, enjoy ourselves. It's a place where our students could use, our community theater could use, where we could host the press conference for the 100th anniversary of Laconia Motorcycle Week. It's a place where we could celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King this past year and talk about his legacy and what it means to us as a city. It's a place where our students can come and get on stage and read their essays and their poetry about things that are important to them. People can stand up and clap for them. It's a place where United States senators come to visit and are astounded by what they see. It's a place we can be proud of. And it's a darn good investment. The other person that had significant influence on my decision when I voted for this in 2018 is Councilor Haynes, sitting to my left. And as I sat there scratching my head, wondering about how I was going to vote, Councilor Haynes said something that I will never forget. If we don't believe in ourselves and invest in ourselves, who will? And I thought, wow, you know, my friend of few words delivers a knockout punch in logic and passion. And I thought, he's absolutely right. We can do nothing in this city, or very little, and we can look around the country, even look around the world, and see what happens to communities when they stop being committed to the future. They grow stagnant, they start to slide backwards. I moved to the city almost 30 years ago. And I would come down to Main Street, I'd grab a cup of coffee at the Laconia Bakery and a muffin. But as far as staying, or maybe I think Warren was probably just closing up the Sundial shop. But giving me a reason to stay downtown for longer than 15 or 20 minutes and then leave, and I'd look around and I'd look at blight, boarded up buildings, absentee landlords, and think, wow, there's a lot of potential in this city, but nobody's coming forward to do something about it. It was incredibly sad. And I have to say, over the past 10 years, it's been a remarkable turnaround. in the theater, and the people who believed in the theater, like Ed Engler, like Bob Hamill, like Mark Haynes, like Henry Lippman, are the people that deserve enormous credit, because they understood that if we spent some money, if we invested in ourselves, if we invested in our community, if we drop that pebble in the pond and watch the economic ripples pull away, we could have something special. Timing couldn't have been worse as far as 2020, or maybe it couldn't have been better. When they got that work done, I thought, what's going to happen post-pandemic? It gave us an opportunity to complete that renovation. It gave us a longer ramp to open up and start up. And since that time, the number of people who have purchased properties, both residential and commercial downtown, is a great surprise. There are many of them. The pride that people have, community, when they walk through that theater. The streets that are filled with people on a Saturday or Sunday. The restaurants that are filled. Defiant Records is filled. There are people around. There are small stores popping up, and this is now becoming a destination. And that is great, because not only is it just pride, but it's about jobs. It's about increased value of property. It's about tax revenue. And the greatest thing about the increase in tax revenue is that we're not covering a broader area in the city with public services. It's high-intensity development without increasing the footprint of the city, because when you increase the footprint, you have to increase the number of people on the public sector. You have to maybe increase the school size. Maybe you have to increase the number of firefighters or police officers or DPW workers. This is concentrated right downtown, which is remarkable. Just recently, the Colonial Theater, and it was received the New Hampshire Theater Alliance Significant Contribution to the Performing Arts in New Hampshire at its 19th New Hampshire Theater Awards. It's a reflection not only of the quality of the theater, but the quality of the productions, the number of people that show up and work there, the number of people that show up and perform there. This is an opportunity, and some of the questions were raised about tax revenue. So the purchase price, we wanted, I don't like paying retail for anything. And when I found out what the purchase price was, this council here didn't want to pay what it was for sale for. We made a couple of offers that were less than. But when we looked at the cost per square foot, it certainly was in line with previous sales, in line to the extent that it was a pretty good deal per square foot, still not knowing that we had to potentially do some renovation. And the good question is, well, where's the money coming from? And I think that's a fair question for any investment that we make. These are federal funds that came to us through the state of New Hampshire. The state of New Hampshire, Governor Sununu determined that for every unit of affordable housing in a community was eligible for $10,000 per unit. So because of how many units? 900 apartment units?
That are going in down?
Yeah.
90.
90 units, excuse me. 90 units going in automatically qualified the state, or the city, for $810,000 of federal funding from the state. Now, this money is owned and possessed by the state of New Hampshire. This Invest NH was determined by the governor to be the program that he wanted to disperse this money. There are very few, if any, restrictions on how this money is used. It's not meant to use for COVID-related. The COVID-related was affordable housing. And if you check the box for affordable housing, then the community would be eligible for the money. This one-time money is also not money that we should build a budget on, if you were to ask me. You can't build a budget around one-time funds and hope you get them the next year. So when the opportunity for this money came in, and it did come to us, voted by the Executive Council unanimously and came to the city, the opportunity to access this money for a one-time purchase of this property seemed to make good sense to me. Not only would it expand the footprint of the theater. It would be a multi-generational asset. It would give the opportunity to have maybe larger shows, perhaps build a loading dock that was on Hanover Street and wouldn't put the people on Canal Street out of business on the day of a show, which we didn't want to happen, and we didn't want to see it happen anymore. But we didn't want the whole building. We couldn't afford the whole building. So when we found out that someone would be interested in the front half of it, which is the more valuable space, and they're paying more for it on a per square foot basis, this seemed like something that we could do. Controlling this asset and controlling what abuts it, so we can control our future with that very precious asset, the Colonial Theater, and enhance its value going forward, if we can afford it, I believe that we can, would be a proper investment that 40, 50, 60, maybe 100 years from now, someone can look back on and say, this theater in 2024, 2025, went from very good to great. We can host shows, we can encourage our youth to not only see shows, but participate in shows. And I'm quite confident that as the value and the impact this theater has in Laconia, those ripples, economic ripples, will be bigger and go a little further. I want to point out, too, that over the past 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and the 5th year is still just an estimate, our valuation from downtown, just the downtown properties, in 2021, it was $108 million. 2023, 2024, the year we're in now, fiscal year we're in now, we've gone up to $136 million. A significant increase in the property values downtown. We anticipate next year that value will climb to $148 million. Can we afford it? Can we afford the renovations? We can afford the purchase price. The renovations are a best estimate that we can offer. I'm not sure anyone here is committed to doing something now if we were to purchase it, or whether it be 2 years or 5 years down the road. But one of the great tools we have in this city is that we have TIF districts. The downtown has a TIF district, where a portion of property taxes paid in the downtown catchment area roll into a TIF fund, which can be continually reinvested in the downtown area. Maximum TIF for next year will be almost $500,000 that could roll into the TIF fund for downtown. So if we're thinking about how do we afford this project going forward, do we bond it? Do we pay for it in cash if we have it? Do we ask for a federal allocation from our federal delegation? Do we do a capital campaign? We are creating a 501c3 right now associated with the theater, so they can do that. Or do we have an ever-increasing TIF that we can draw down on those funds and continually reinvest? I think these are all great options. I don't know which one is the best, and I don't think we will know for quite some time. But I think controlling our destiny, our figurative destiny, by buying this next to the theater, connecting it if possible, letting another exciting business pop up on Main Street, I think it affords us an opportunity here to continue to be really proud of this city, that we're willing to invest in ourselves, we're willing to do it in a prudent way, and we believe that the future is darn important, not just to us, to our kids, our grandkids, our friends, that we have a chance to continue to make a mark on this city like so many people did for centuries here. That would conclude my remarks this evening. And I thank you. All those times I passed on my remarks, I was just saving up time. Just saving up time. So thank you for letting me speak. move on to item number 20, which is the city manager's report. After that, we will move forward with the last agenda item, 22C, okay?
So you yielded me any of your time, is that what this is? Okay.
What's that again?
You yielded me some of your time, is that what?
Yes, I'll learn to my learned colleague from the first floor, yes.
You have a couple documents with you tonight, as we do every month. I'm going to keep my remarks really short, so I'm only going to give you a couple of updates. But included in your packet is our Laconia projects update, which are online as well and as part of the official project. Laconia road projects have started up. I would have said on Friday that it's because our weather has improved and they're able to get out sooner, but I would be lying if I said that tonight. But Wentworth Cove Road, Summit Ave, Old Prescott Hill, these are all projects that are coming up for either water or road maintenance improvements. So they're working on those right now, and moving along well. Or we'll be moving along well with those getting. Hopefully it'll warm up a little bit and they'll get an earlier start on that. Turning the page, and again, I'll move quickly because I know we have a busy agenda. The Church Street Bridge project, there was an expansion joint that they're working on. That's why it's been closed. They did find some other damage in the decking, so they're evaluating how bad it is right now, what the costs are going to be, and all that. So we'll be updating you on that as well more in the next month, but we will have some, it wasn't as smooth as we were hoping for on that project. Going over to the next page, you see under the Opeechee Loop, that's the part of the WOW Trail that's going to be in the Elm Street area, Franklin down to Union Ave in that area. There's a couple of different projects that are going on in there. And the city is involved. This is the one that was, we have a grant where our portion of it's $125,000, or actually our portion was $225,000. We got $100,000 from the county through the Wild Trail folks. So we're working on finalizing our funding numbers. It's a little bit all over the place exactly what the numbers are for a couple of different reasons, but I think we're getting close to final numbers now. But we'll be within what we were allowed to spend, and I think once the project gets off the ground, it will go well. I'm going to skip all the way over to page 5, the Laconia Master Plan update. We have had no update on this for quite a while, and it says that there, but we do have. Our planning director, new planning director, has put this high on the priority list. Understanding that this is important for if we're going to continue to talk about all these projects, that we need to get this out there. And he wants to do it right, so it's not going to be an inexpensive project. He's been working on some alternative funding sources, either through grants or the likewise, so we can put the money into it that we need, that we want to do this project right. So doing a nice job working on that at this point. And I was going to update on the state school as I always do. The mayor made his remarks. All I'll say is thank you for your comments. I think our department heads and our departments have done a great job answering all the questions, and the expertise that they bring to the table when they're asked these questions is outstanding, and they do a phenomenal job. So I'd like to second your comments with thanking our department heads and our departments for what they do with that. Those questions. Second document is the monthly economic development report. No real changes on any of it. The unemployment rate's right around the same, and our CPI number, we're only 2 months into this year, so, and it's really unchanged. The last thing I'll bring up tonight is that for a few months now, a little longer than we needed to probably, we've been working on the Community Power Coalition. We've had the presentation. And then it was now the next thing we have to do is form a committee so they can review all the documents, bring it back to you with a recommendation. And we were stuck on the committee side of it. We have the committee has been chosen. Just as a reminder, this was tasked on me to put the committee together. Rich McNeil, who sits on the planning board and has a long history with PSNH and Eversource. He spoke in front of you guys. He will be on the committee. And I'll ask him to chair it. Tyler Carmichael, who is our assistant planner, he's here somewhere, who has both planning and some energy background, and Pat Wood has offered to be on the committee to get it off the ground, get it started. Understanding there's a lot of contracts and legal speak that I think he'll bring a lot to the table on. We'll reach out to our attorneys. Our attorneys will guide us through the early points of the process. One thing that's interesting to note is there were 24 communities through town meeting that are signed up to be in some form of this timetable. You know, it's a long process there, but it's passed in 24 communities, bringing up to 50 or 60 communities that have signed on to this. So we're right in a good spot right now. The one thing that we didn't mention on the committee is Councilor Hoffman and I have spoke about, and I don't know if you want to jump in, Councilor, but we've spoke about having some form of representation from the council, formally or informally with it, and so I don't know if you would be glad to be part of that.
Yeah, I think the city council should have some representative on the committee, and I'd like to volunteer for that.
Oh, I think you're appointed. All in favor? Aye, it's unanimous. Thanks. Were you ever in the military?
No.
Oh, okay.
That explains it.
And that's all I have for my report.
Any questions of the city manager? Seeing none, thank you. Kirk.
Thank you.
It's the manager's report. Project statement, I'm saying. Okay, I'd like to pull forward right now, item number 22C. Item number 22C on our agenda is potential purchase of the city, by the city of Laconia, of a portion of 601 Main Street, Laconia, the aforementioned parcel. Kirk, would you walk us through, I know Councilor Cheney had some questions the last time around that I know you were working hard to try and get answered, but if you could sort of walk us through what you have and what you can share.
Sure. So there was a list of questions, mostly about the building and its conditions. We did go through with we had Eversource and the contractor electrician that we use for everything in the city. We went through to look at the electrical side of it and what it was going to be to split the two sides of the buildings. Because remember, as we talked about, the building is not going to be a shared building. It is going to be two separate buildings. There may be a shared space, but it'll be two separate buildings with all its amenities. One of the big unknowns was we had a very rough estimate, I'll say, on electrical costs to split it. We were estimating somewhere in the $50,000 range, and what it just came in as, we did get our electrician in Eversource went through, and we're in just under $39,000 to split the electrical on both sides. That was to give the restaurant what they should need for all the electricity that they need, and then again what would need on our side. We would have a blank building, if you will. So what we do in it could fluctuate on our needs, but to do pretty much anything general that we've talked about, whether it be dressing room, storage, office space, whatever it might be, we would have well within enough with that split of the electricity. So that was important. We went through. I had a building inspector go through with us. We had very good walkthrough of the building. Kept saying throughout the process, this is not an engineer, this is a building inspector. What good condition the building was in. He was very impressed with the bones of the building and how it looked as we walked through. We went up onto the roof. Roof was in good condition. Not to say this to Melissa and Tyler, but better on the back half of the building right now. But it was. But it was in really good condition up there. There's a few minor things that have to be fixed, but not with nothing critical. It's going to need some updated work on the sprinkler system, mostly on replacing heads, which probably looks at the $6,000 to $10,000 range to do all the work. So, not free, but by no means terrible work. There's a drain pipe in the basement that needs to be updated, repaired, which I thought was a sewer line at first, which made me quite nervous, but it's not. It's a drainage pipe that has been confirmed that it's a drain pipe. So it's minor in the grand scheme of it. To come up with the true estimate, it's funny, we've talked about this a lot tonight of, the ranges are wide, because it really depends on what we're doing with it. And every time I'd ask somebody, let's talk about some ranges, it was, well, what are you going to do with it? Well, we got a lot of ideas. So I think unfortunately, it's a wide range, but I think the $100 to $200 per square foot is probably a fair estimate. And you heard what their estimate was, and their work that they're going to be doing on their renovation is certainly a little bit higher because of the stuff that they have to put into the restaurant versus what we would have to do for a renovation of a box building.
So the total square feet on the portion that we're considering.
I've looked at it with the basement included, and it sounds like when Warren was giving his numbers, he was using it without it. If you don't mind, I'm gonna look over my shoulder to Warren for the square footage. 'Cause
Yeah, probably not the basement.
I use the basement as well, but
But the basement is mostly under the
restaurant. So
There's probably 1,200 feet down there that would be common. There is 14,000 feet on the first floor, and you get about 7,500 on the second.
How much is that as a city, Bob?
So the city, if this were to go through, this is all contingent, so the city would purchase 14,000 feet of the first floor?
No.
Right.
14,000 is the entire floor. Subtract 4,600 from that. And
Okay.
then potential plans to develop the theater, there'd be an alleyway from Hanover Street all the way through. That would be common. That's about 900 square feet.
So my question of you right now is how, I interrupted you a little bit here. but
no, that's fine.
Would the renovation of that, the city's portion, would be for a total of 11,000 feet?
yeah. Yep.
Would be like 9,200.
Okay, let's use 11. Let's use 11. Okay, let's use 11.
The proposed plans only showed developing the first floor for the theater, and the upstairs would be this space.
So 11, if you use 11, and that's generous, at 150, which is similar, that renovation cost comes out, what's that? That comes out to 1.65. That's not the work that needs to be done once you take possession of it. Once you take possession of it, Tony, you had worked, Counselor, you had worked on that.
Yeah.
About 100,000.
Yeah, we
split
figured about
in half.
100,000 to split everything, build the firewall, and make it two separate buildings.
Okay, so that would be, the owner of the back portion of that building, that would be step one. Firewall, split utilities, that's gonna run about $100,000.
Correct.
Mr. Mayor, the restaurant people will split that up to the $50,000, so it would be $50,000 for the city and $50,000 for the restaurant.
Right.
Thank you. So that would be 50K to give us the 50K, which would partition it. And would that be what we'd call the vanilla box at that point?
Yes. Yep. That would be split utilities, so essentially the building would be two separate buildings, and we'd own our piece of it, and we'd have all our own utilities.
Estimate on yearly upkeep, just utilities, routine maintenance. How much did you budget?
I didn't do a budget on that.
You've got some expertise in this, Counselor Felch.
I would say it's gonna be really minimal, because especially if it's not being used. The heat doesn't have to be that high. 5,000, 10 max.
I say 10.
Or once
Let's
we're
go to 10.
once we're in there, it'll be more than that. But
Yeah.
just to say mothball it, so it's not being used.
Let's
it
go to
won't be
10.
that much. And I'll say one thing that some people might not realize, us dividing this into two different buildings, it's no different than the theater and the antique center is right now. They share a wall, and they're two separate buildings. So,
Well, we share a wall with the Canal Street businesses as
Exactly.
well,
yeah, so it's no different.
and the residences.
Yeah.
I interrupted you. Do you have anything else to add?
No, I think that hit everything that we needed to talk about with it.
Council input. Before we go to any motion, I'd love to hear your thoughts and reservations and concerns or optimism. Counselor Hoffman.
I think there's some concern from people that we're potentially getting ourselves into a parking garage situation. And I guess I just wanted to reiterate that I don't think anybody up here wants to generate another parking garage situation any more than the public does. I guess I just want to point out that this is a completely different kind of situation than what we have going on at the parking garage. Correct me if I'm wrong, but if this property were to be purchased and separated, what happens with that front half of the property no longer has anything to do with the city, right?
Right.
Correct. And if I could just piggyback on that one thing I meant to mention, you triggered my memory. We're not going into any part of the restaurant business. We will have no partnership. It's not a public-private partnership as far as anything to do with restaurant or, we're not
Nor are we
leasing it to them.
subsidizing.
Right.
This will actually be two different real estate sales. They're buying the front half, we're buying the back half. If they decide not to do the restaurant, they can sell the front half.
Right.
So-
We're not going to own any means of production.
Correct.
Right. Would you break out the sale price for us if you could? How that's broken out?
Yeah, it would be $700,000 for the city, $500,000 on the private sale end, and then the other $100,000 we would have, because we're looking at using up to $800,000, so we would have that other 500. Not 500.
So let's make this clear. Our grant through the Invest NH funds is $810,000. This property is for sale for 1.2, and the owner is committed to selling it at 1.2. The city's obligation on the purchase price, $700,000. The front third of the building is $500,000. We've used an estimate to partition and do a boundary line adjustment, right? Of being,
I think we're going to condominiumize them, and but just put two totally separate buildings. No, we don't. We'll do it that way. How the legal speak works with our lawyers when we do that will be, I just don't want to get locked into it's a boundary line adjustment. I want to make sure it's
Okay.
It's our lawyers will work through that as a correct way of
to put up the
dividing
wall
building.
between the two places, split the utilities, costing the city $50,000 at this point.
Correct.
Estimate,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So that is $750 of the $810 that we have been granted.
Correct.
So the commitment, I mean, that is the commitment to do this. That's the financial cost. Going forward, what we might call phase 2 would be, what do we do about renovation and when do we do it? And how do we pay for it, of course? Not for us decision, it's for us to think about, certainly, and us and future councils and future mayors and city managers. It's not a decision that we have to make this evening, though. Councilor Cheney, yes, go right ahead.
I viscerally think it's a good project, but I'm concerned about two things. I remember Councilor Phelps saying it would be impossible to project what these upgrades might cost in the future. And I'll buy that, but tell me what they'd cost today. Nobody has said to me, these are the upgrades we're gonna make. It's just sort of a pie in the sky. We're gonna fix up the upstairs and downstairs goes to the theater. I guess I question, is the theater gonna pay for the rooms and whatever? Are we gonna? I just think there are questions that still need to be answered with regards to the costs going forward. I don't think the purchase price is unreasonable at all, Mr. Mayor. The second thing I have, and this is visceral for me, is I have said over and over and over again, we've got to do something about the city's employees. And I don't know how I face a city employee and say, we can't do anything about your pay raise right now, but we're gonna buy this $700 and some odd $1,000 building that may improve the downtown. I suspect will improve the downtown. I can't in good conscience go forward with this. I can't vote to go forward with this until I hear more about costs. I understand what you were saying about the future, but tell me about today if we did it. And tell me, I don't mean to address you
No, that's fine.
personally or anyone
Yep.
here, but tell me, these are our plans. You know, at the moment, I thought I heard somebody say, maybe we can get through the wall.
I didn't hear anybody say that.
I thought I did. But what's it gonna cost to get through the wall? And who's gonna pay for that? And who's gonna pay for the lower half? And if it's us, that's fine, but I'd like to know about it and know what some projection would be for those costs. I don't wanna rush. I want more answers. I understand if the rest of you don't feel that way, but I am supportive of the concept. I'm not supportive of what we have for information yet. And I have that other visceral problem of our public employees who are competitively challenged by surrounding towns and other entities while we talk about buying a building to help out some actors. That may be a slight generalization, but I'd like to hear more information, and I'd like us to work on some other things. If developing the downtown is important, keeping the employees we have is critical. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Cheney. Councilor Suso, you raised your hand.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of things bother me as far as and I think the project is good, no doubt in my mind, okay? It's something we should, and you brought it home to me, like Councilor Haynes did to you. We have to invest in ourselves. It's the best thing we can get to return. But, I think, you know, where's the benefactor other than the citizens is spectacle. And I know that once we say yes to the building here and do this, we've really committed ourselves to the rest of it. 1.6 million, 3 million, whatever it's gonna be. And I would hope that, to come back to what Councilor Cheney said in a moment, how we're gonna pay for it. And this past week, as from the Appointments Committee, we had listened to some people from the Putnam Fund. And all of us here think the Putnam Fund is great. They do fantastic for the community. But one of the things they came to us, and they were pleading, is the fact that they use the Colonial Theater to put on their shows, and we all know the shows are free to everybody anybody can come to the shows, but they have to pay $5,000 a night to put a show in. I thought that was a little bit harsh, okay, for something, they've got a minimum budget, we all know that, it's not exorbitant. They bring some fantastic shows. I just wish that Spectacle would try and help out the city in that way also. And maybe when we get to the point of, as Councilor Cheney said, how's this all gonna get paid for? Not the first step, but the second step. But I think the second step is necessary. Really do it to bring in, as you've explained to us, you know, better acts, larger acts, okay, but you're gonna bring in more revenue all the way through. We have yet to see some kind of a financial report. I'd like to see something done on that that gives us an idea where it's gonna be. The TIF fund is gonna help tremendously. I don't think there'd be anybody here in the council that would say no to moving ahead with the whole project over time. Okay, not right away, over time. At the same time, I realize what Councilor Cheney is talking about when it comes to the employees, and we're gonna continue to address that as part of the Finance Committee. And, you know, we know we'll make progress. Are we waiting, are we pushing too fast, too soon? I just feel committed to this part of the building commits us to the rest, no doubt. And I just want to make sure we're doing the right thing, that's all. Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Counselor Susie. Look at mine on my left. Any council comments over here? Counselor Felch, Counselor Boger, Counselor Haynes, any thoughts you'd like to share?
Well,
Anything else from you?
Yeah, I think I'm correct in this, that there are not any other properties adjacent to the Colonial that could be utilized to alleviate the issues it currently has, correct? It's either this building or it doesn't happen, right?
Yeah, there's nothing, yeah.
That's, because I want people to be aware of that, that it's not like, you know, this building becomes something else. That Colonial is now kind of landlocked, and the current issues, the traffic on Canal Street, it's going to be that way forever. This is an opportunity for us to address some of the shortcomings in the Colonial, and I think it's a good opportunity that we should take advantage of. Because I don't think there will be a second opportunity for us to address these issues.
Mr. Mayor, can I make one more comment, please?
I'm feeling generous.
No, it's one last comment. Again, I feel like this is a great thing, it's something we should do, but I just want to make sure that the concerns that I have, we address them at some point along the line, okay? And, you know, it's pretty important, I think, because we're committing the city to a lot more than just the $800,000 that comes to us in the grant. We are really committing us to we've heard numbers from 1.6 to $4 million. How's it gonna be taken care of, and take care of our employees at the same time? And the Putnam Fund, too. Thank you.
I'm glad I gave you that time. I think you speak the truth. I appreciate it.
So, I totally agree with Councilor Hoffman. This is probably a one-time opportunity to fix some problems that we have in the Colonial. Also, by us purchasing our share, it brings a nice restaurant to downtown Laconia that's gonna bring more business to downtown Laconia. If we can improve the theater, may it be in time, that's gonna bring more to downtown Laconia. I just think if we wait, that opportunity could be gone. And I'd be real disappointed if we lost out on that.
Yeah, you know, one thing it's tough to reconcile at times when we sit up here as members of a public body. Public body moves at a certain pace, private sector moves rapidly. You know, and somehow, how do you reconcile those two? That's moving quickly, you feel like you should do something, but on the other hand, you want to be responsible in your decisions. It's just a different perspective than being an entrepreneur and saying, okay, I'm in. You know, you're going on your gut. You can't do that here. You have to. So it's reconciling those two paces can sometimes be challenging. Yep. Councilor Bogut, I don't know if you had want to make any comments or not. I'm going to give you an opportunity.
I've been listening very closely to all the discussion, the questions that are going back and forth. As I can see the need for the dressing rooms and bathrooms and stuff, I still have concerns about the pricing of the DLC, and the devil's in the details, and that's came back several times to bite us. And as I've heard a lot of going back and forth, I've seen very little in writing. And I'm of the type that have seen this has come back and bit us on several occasions from past decisions where memorandums of understanding were not given to everybody, and things that were agreed upon weren't done. When I'm buying a house or selling a house, you're giving certain amounts of documents, a sales contract, a basis of what the building shape is in and stuff, property disclosures, and we've not seen anything, and we're relying on a lot of people's good faith and verbiage to get us to the end point. In the future cost, in '27, we're gonna start to take over the Colonial Theater, or either way, the bonds come and due, and we're gonna end up with an increased cost to the city. That's gonna have to be budgeted for. And as we're getting tighter on our budget, yeah, we're putting the 700 aside. Just put that aside for the second. Anywhere from 1.6 to $2.2 million will be needed to finish the upgrade in this building. On top of the payments and stuff we're gonna have to make with the takeover of the Colonial when we get it. I still haven't seen the numbers, how all that meshes together in the bigger scope of our tax cap, because as I see our tax cap having an effect based on our employees' compensation package and other things that are increasing, the roads themselves, we allocate like 1.5 million for roads. Half of that is, well, I thought half of it, but I found out there's a bridge thing that money's coming from. But 1.5 million of road servicing doesn't get you as far anymore. So having to look at trying to increase some of these other costs, I'm not talking about the 700, so I'm talking about ongoing expenses and stuff, where we are trying to figure out how to pay more to get less, so that we can continue to run our city, at least at a reasonable rate. So I'm just have my concerns that financially, how is this gonna help or hurt us? We know it's a break even, so we're not looking to make money off of it. I guess the only money to be made would be if you could package that with the Colonial and sell the whole package to an investor.
But we're not doing that. It's like selling your public parks.
Well, no, that's, all I was trying to say there is, that's the only way you're gonna make, the city would make a profit off of it. Other than that, it's just breaking even as best you can, and hopefully it can pay for itself mostly. So I've said a lot, and I still haven't said what you're interested in.
Well, you don't, I didn't have any premeditated.
I'm still concerned about the numbers.
I do.
And
Okay.
I want to see the numbers.
So, just if I can interrupt you, just two things. Now, on the ownership of the Colonial, which Councilor Bogart raised, that transfers from Belknap Economic Development to the city in 2 years? I'm looking at both of
Correct,
you. Right.
yes.
Increasing the city's obligation?
No. If we don't take over the ownership, it increases the city's obligation significantly.
Right. So this is, it's tiered. We go up a little bit every single year as far as our obligation, correct?
Correct.
Okay. If I could look to Warren Clement on this, just to get some, if you could elucidate what, if the city were to say, we'd like to do this, what is this period of due diligence between saying we want to do it leading up to a closing? What would be entailed? Because I think Counselor Bogart raises a couple, and I think a couple of questions have been raised as far as doing a more formal walkthrough. What else would the due diligence period cover?
You'd hire a building inspecting firm. And I can give you 3 names of the commercial people. They'll go through and spend most of the day with a flashlight and a screwdriver and check everything out. And they'll give you probably a 30-page report. $1,500, I would guess. Because we use all of them all the time, you probably have someone here next week or the week after. So now you've got an outline of the building and you know where it is. There was a property disclosure that I had handed in, which is very basic. What's the heating system? Not does it work, what's the heating system, what's the electricity and all that kind of stuff, so. 3 weeks, month.
But we would be able, during the due diligence period, we as a city would be able to determine if we go through with the deal and just keep it as a box, is the radiant heating work? We'll be able to determine that during our own.
They'd have to fire it off. There's oil in the tanks. You'd have to
Okay.
fire off that boiler, which means you'd have to bring someone in and talk to Charlie about that.
Okay,
You have 2 units on the city's side of HVAC. You've got 1 on the restaurant side. That's got nothing to do with you, but that could be $2,000 to have someone come in and fire it off, assuming if it doesn't blow up. Then you have a different problem. No, it won't blow up. They'll make
And
sure.
we haven't signed the paperwork yet,
But-
so we're good.
Those are gas.
well, you want to find it out during the due diligence period,
Right.
then when you own it.
That's gas, and the gas is capped off in the basement. Could they bring a 25-gallon pound? I'm sure they could, but we can do that.
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
I'll go right back to you after that, yeah.
if it's capped off, that means it's probably natural gas. And
Oh, it
so
is natural gas.
So a 20-pounder of LP will not function on the furnace.
It may be natural gas that they put in there. I don't know.
And my understanding also, Mr. Mayor, was part of the deal was that we got a functioning, part of the contract would be we got a functioning furnace.
Yes.
Not something that we would pay for to prove that it's functioning or not functioning. But that it would be a functioning furnace as part of the contract.
Charlie has agreed to that.
And so I would think,
Those, Council, are all basic things that you buy a house and, well, of course, the heating system has to work, and of course the system, so those are all part.
but I think to your point, Counselor Bogart, is these things aren't left just to good faith, they're reduced to writing.
No, if we want to have our own guy, which I prefer having our own guy.
I would too.
Look at it, that would be best on our position. Because he's given the report to us that we paid for.
Agreed. Agreed, and I know Counselor Cheney, whether he supports this or not, likes things reduced to writing.
Yes, he does.
I mean, that puts a smile on his face, just mentioning it. Look at him, he lights up. He just lights up.
My question there is, that he answered that, yes, he does, so does that mean he supports it or he wants it in writing?
He wants everything in writing. We haven't gotten him to the other bridge.
I'll submit my questions then.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, are you finished, or would you like to go ahead?
Yes, sir.
You had a
Thank you.
question maybe for Warren while he's here?
No, I have a question
Okay.
for you.
Uh.
A question for, when I look at the motion, Mr. Mayor, I see it says, to use up to $800,000 in one-time funds, those state of New Hampshire funds.
Invest NH.
Invest in it. I don't know how you or the council would feel, that instead of using that money there, let's say we decide here we're gonna buy it, we're gonna spend up to $800,000, then we go through all these processes and determine where the money's gonna come from. Is it gonna use the Invest in New Hampshire money, or do we wanna bond it, or what do we wanna do?
Well,
That's
I don't
the
think that's a,
question.
I think that could be part of the discussion. I think one option is to draw down and invest NH money, and we've got it in the bank, and that's one option, right? And when we get to that point and say, okay, we're good to go, now which pot of money? Do we want to bond it and maybe do more? Or do we want to draw down on cash? I mean, that's up to all of you and your,
Right,
and your wisdom.
I'm just, instead of committing that there, I'm wondering if that's a way you need to,
Fair enough. We could probably modify something there that if you want to take a quick run at it right now, and Counselor Susie, you maybe draft it a little bit right now on the fly, maybe but we could find it. Counselor Cheney, yes.
I just want to reiterate, and I'm glad we mentioned in writing, because I am concerned about that. We've had some other experiences that didn't go well because we didn't get it in writing. But the other thing, I'm thrilled to hear the idea of a few $1,000s, which I think is short money, to have the building carefully inspected for foundation and, you know, what is the basement, you know, flooring like, is it safe? But the second thing is, I'd like to know what we're planning to do upstairs. You know, where are you putting this door and where are the dressing rooms going? Because if I can see, and if they can see what we're talking about putting in, I would feel more comfortable if I had some idea, you know, and could get an estimate. Today, it would cost us umpty-ump dollars. I think we've had an umpty-ump dollar figure, 1.6, was that the one you?
That's 1.6, but.
Somebody did, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, whatever. I'd like to see what that would produce. But most importantly, I want to know that we're not buying a pig in the poke. I'm good friends with Charlie, and I don't want to disparage how he maintains the building, but I'd like to know it's okay.
Yeah, well, I think you've raised a good point there. I mean, I think there's an expectation that I would, again, we want it reduced to writing. You know, whether it's broom clean or you know, things of that nature. I mean, there's a lot to move there, and I think that's the expectation, and that should be reduced to writing, and there should be a due date that the seller has to be out, right? And anything after that, pay us rent maybe. I don't know, but I'm all for putting that in writing. To even if you don't come along, I want you to know that the structure of what might be proposed is solid.
Right.
Okay.
I'm a lot more comfortable at that point, Mr. Mayor.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Counselor Haynes, would you like to weigh in?
Thank you. Yeah. I can only think back that when we were on the final stages of the Colonial, and Councilor Hamel said, we have a problem with the stage floor. And everybody in this just about wanted to cringe. The stage floor is fixed. We found a way to do it. As far as our employees, there's no one here, and I'm including myself, is top priority as far as the employees are concerned. If anybody thinks that this money would solve the problem, it won't. I think I think it's being addressed. I think it will be addressed in this budget coming up, and hopefully that will resolve the problem. I understand the cost, and trust me, I'm not anyone that wants to sell a farm for nothing. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you in 2028 what things are going to cost. I don't know that. I don't know what the cost of pavement's going to be. Okay, yes, we can project that. This to me is, and then Councilor Hoffman brought it up. You know, if we don't, and someone else takes over this, we're doomed. So, yes, we do need a plan for what's going forward, but I think at some point in time, that's going to be future councils that's going to decide that. And I don't think it's anything that we can decide right now. And it may come to that it may not fruition, but at least we will have control over that and be able to say what to do with it. And I think that's most important. And to conclude, I've listened to a lot of comments over the weekend about private-public doesn't work and you should have your head examined and the whole I'm sorry. If you look at the town of, I'm sorry, it's not a town. If you look at the city of Portsmouth, what they have done to that downtown, and that's been public-private. And I'm sure when they started that redevelopment, there was questions about 4 years from now, how do we get the money? 6 years from now, how do we get the money? Worcester, Massachusetts, okay? That community has gone through a seismic change that no one could predict in the city of Worcester, as far as buildings, as far as the ice arena, the ballpark. The city is to be commended because they put, and their city council put their names on the line and said, this is something we're going to do. I don't think you can, I think you can judge from my conversations that I'm in favor of it. Thank you, Mayor.
Question for the city manager.
Oh, please do, yeah.
Mr. Manager, I have a question for you.
Yes.
I know the motion says to take the money from one-time Invest New Hampshire money, but if we moved ahead with this and then wanted to flip it to another way, let's say a bond compared, because we want to use the money someplace else, can we do that?
Yeah, you could, that's a suggested motion based on the conversations that we've been having and what I would anticipate you would be looking to do if you were gonna move forward. That's where that motion comes from. Certainly, if you wanna make a different motion than that,
you can take this-
take the, where the funding source is coming from out, use the same dollar figure, it certainly would raise some other questions as to where, but that's, that's nothing we can't work through. We know we have an identified site if needed, and if you choose to go a different direction, you can. So that would be a fine motion.
I think we should just remove that after the comma, after the word proposed, up until city, and something should say source to be determined.
Well, I think we leave the up to 800,000 in there.
Yes. Oh, you're
Yeah,
right.
leave the dollar figure in, but take the funding
know I
source
was a
out,
lawyer.
and we can address that during our due diligence time.
A quick question for the city manager. I just want to clear something up. You did say that there was an inspection on the property, right?
It was not an official paid-for inspection. I had a building inspector go through. I had a 2-week window to turn this around, so
Right.
we went in with a building inspector and walked through. We didn't
Okay.
check every outlet and every piece that you would do. We were looking for the generalized, the envelope of the building, the strengths, the conditions of it, and that's what we did.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And I'll say, this is the same thing you do if you're buying a house, you're buying any building. You're gonna have an inspector go in and make sure the due diligence is done, and when you find problems, you figure out whether it's the buyer or the owner that's gonna pay for those things.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, getting back to stuff in writing, we're seeing an awful lot of, well, I mean, this discussion is 2/3 of one page when you come right down to it, and the proposed motion is 5 lines. I'd just like to see more. I'd like to see this inspection. I'm not opposed. I just want to be confident that the building is what we think it is, and some estimate, some projection about the future of the part that we're gonna own. Where are we going through? What sort of things is
I
that
think
gonna?
I'm sorry, that might be tough, right? That phase two, and I understand your reservations, right? I get it. Yes. I think what I'd like to do, I think the opportunity is before us tonight, and I'd like to make a decision tonight. If there are some bullets that need to be added to this motion, then we should add them tonight. Make sure that we're going to have a due diligence period here that we have to perform. But I'd like to say, I'd like to think that maybe we can make a commitment tonight. Because that, again, it's the pacing of things. We've got people, it's gonna take two of us to pull this off, two parties. One party's ready to dance, so.
Yeah, I will say there's also down the road, you could build another wall and subdivide it again. You could build a bunch of walls and condominiumize part of it and just keep the part you need for the colonial. So there's lots of different routes you can go. You don't have to make that decision now.
No.
You can
We-
decide 2 years down the road, you don't want any of it and sell it.
We may
and
meet-
probably
we-
make
we-
money on it.
We may need more space for City Hall. I mean,
Right.
I don't, I mean, we're up against it.
Right.
But isn't the whole deal subject to passing the building inspection, the due diligence?
Yeah.
So I mean, those are the
doesn't
bullet
say
points you
that.
talked about here.
Okay, well, let's get it on the record and clarify it. Yes, okay?
Thank you.
May I ask one
Oh, we
follow-up?
may.
I was under the impression that we were gonna subdivide the building, not physically, but on paper, to where we have an owner in the front and we have an owner in the back, and we don't care what the owner in the front does. Then I heard the word condominium, and that's a different monster.
Yeah, you know,
Because that leads to other financial
right.
documents.
No, and you're correct.
costs
Yeah,
and
it
stuff.
is it will become two separate buildings. We're building a wall that is separating
Word
the
will?
two. What's that?
The key word there being will.
Well, it's one building now.
But it will
Part of
become-
the funding that we've talked about, it completely divides the building.
That's that
And it-
$50,000.
I'm trying to clarify the word will and shall and not may.
I didn't
I
say
want the
may.
word
It's
It shall
Yeah.
become two buildings.
Yes.
Or it will become two buildings.
it's
Choice is yours, not a may. What would you
Not-
prefer?
n-
not a may.
Anything that makes it so it's two buildings.
So I
Period.
think the motion tonight that we could make looks a little different than the purchase and sale that we may see in the coming days. Right, I mean, I think that's gonna be a little bit different, and I think what we're asking the city manager now, if this is passed, that there are certain elements of this purchase and sale that we wanna see in writing. All right?
Yeah, I think just the two big things that keep jumping out, the building inspection, that's easy, that's, that's standard and easy to do. The piece that is a little bit harder is if we want to do an exact what the cost would be today to renovate our share of the building. I would need to know exactly what we're looking to do, because I would have to farm that out to, that has to go out to be professionally done. But I need to know it's going to be office space, it's going to be dressing rooms, it's going to be whatever. I don't know if we'll have that answer. I mean, that would have to be, I don't know if you guys are willing to put that out today to say this is what we're going to do. If we are, that's what I would be able to take to to either an engineer or an architect and say, this is what we're looking to do exactly, and get numbers.
So on
as
tonight,
is.
on this purchase and sale, I want you to, again, make note of it. This building will be divided into two separate buildings. We will, during our period of due diligence, at our cost, hire a commercial building inspector and ask for a full and complete report of that building.
Can I suggest that this motion say that the purchase is subject to, the results of an inspection?
Well,
Or-
we
there's
can.
probably some better
but
words,
I-
but-
I don't know, but I think that's the nature of the due diligence period. And if we find out that there is a latent defect to the structure somewhere,
Yep.
that becomes an item to negotiate with the seller, right?
Yep.
I mean, but I want to make this a firm commitment, not a loosey-goosey commitment. I would like us to. But we've got the leeway during due diligence to go back and say, hey, this isn't as promised. We need to put our heads together and get to a real number here. Just like you would in buying a house, right? I mean, a septic system that needs a little work, then you get or a roof, and the sale price has got to be adjusted. Same thing here.
Yep.
And if we may note the furnace, I want to make
Oh,
sure.
thank
that
you.
the
Thank you,
furnace
right,
is-
and we want to, thank you, I appreciate that. Turn the furnace on and make sure that it's working.
And there will be a wall.
And then we already said
Will be a
that.
wall.
Yes.
There'll be a wall.
Shall, will.
Mexico's paying for it.
Shall, anything but maybe. Should.
Maybe if it's not in writing.
Are we feeling good about those bullets right now as to what would be included? Go ahead if you have something to add.
No,
Funding to be determined. Funding source to be determined.
Funding source, the two separate buildings, which we've already worked through with some numbers, commercial building inspection, furnace working, you know, your standard that are we safe with not doing the, this is our estimate of what we're looking to do with the building right now. I mean, I guess that would be the other,
It's a work in progress.
you know.
Yeah.
We were gonna start the work in the summer. We'd need hard numbers right now to commit to it, but we're not. It's just it's tough to project, but I bet we could find some reasonable estimates from some commercial building friends in the area. Warren?
I'd also add to that asbestos abatement, if that's taken care of.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
That'll show up in the building, but
Right.
keep out of it.
One dirty site.
Yep.
I'm sorry. Did you raise your hand?
Oh, lead paint, you brought up a good
No,
point.
okay. I didn't know. If you're saying something, I just want to acknowledge you. I didn't know.
Just on the subject of abatement, obviously asbestos is very much in the public consciousness, especially with the recent ruling at the federal level. But there's more than one potential hazardous source in there that you'd be legally required to jump through the abatement hoops, and that would be lead. There's a lot of lead
Sure,
in
but-
that building in various forms, so if you're gonna have.
There is?
Oh, sure. Just based on.
That should be
age
part of the
came along.
inspection.
It'll be part of the inspection, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
Charlie's
Work
price is
that in
getting
there
done.
when you're talking about
There's
abatement.
actually different rules on residential and commercial buildings.
But it's a fact.
That's what the inspection was for.
All right.
You can eat lead.
Is there a motion in here
Not
somewhere?
yet. No, I mean, I think you,
All right, so what the motion is, there's gonna be a motion here, and it's going to be incorporated by reference to the bullets you have in front of you, okay? But we'll go through those one more time during the motion,
yep.
all right? So the motion that is being proposed right now is a move to approve the purchase by the city of the back two-thirds of the building at 601 Main Street for up to $800,000, source of funds to be determined, and to authorize the city manager to enter into negotiations for the purchase of the property and to sign all documents required in relation to the purchase. This motion will also include these items from the city manager.
We would have, the two complete separation of the buildings, pending the, commercial building inspection outcome, pending the outcome of a, properly working furnace. I think we could, instead of putting the asbestos and lead abatement in there now, I think, it would be, that would default
comes-
back to the commercial building inspection.
Yes.
Because it could be all sorts of things.
Happy to
or
put it in
nothing.
there if you like, just to be redundant and to bootstrap it if that
You
makes
can, if you,
people
yeah,
happy,
no, if you'd like
okay?
to, and also pending the results of, asbestos and lead findings and potential abatement costs.
That's the motion. Would like, Counselor Felch moves it. Is there a second? Counselor Hoffman, second. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by raising your hands. All opposed? Motion passes 4-2. I would ask that you, when that is reduced to writing, obviously make sure that we all get a copy of that, okay?
Yep.
Thank you. To all of you, whether you joined and however you voted, as a mayor who gets to facilitate these meetings, I really appreciate discussion, and ideas and thoughts. It makes it work. It makes it work. I mean,
Thank you.
we're a long way from home, but thank you.
It's getting late, let's get going.
Can you take over for a few minutes? I gotta stretch my legs, use the bathroom.
Sure. I was gonna say, we might, do we wanna take a recess?
Yes.
Hey, I'd like to take a recess. I'm gonna take a 5-minute recess. I'm sorry it's so late, but this was a long one. I wanna stretch my legs and let everybody use the lavatory. Thank you. Moving on to, just let the record reflect that Councilor Cheney has stepped out, will no longer be with us. We have 5 members, we still have a quorum. Moving on to item number 21, which is new business. 21A, Resolution 2024-08, acceptance of funds from a charitable trust, Jensen Benevolent Fund, in the amount of $25,000 to fund the development of a firearms range for the Laconia Police Department. By acceptance of this fund, the Laconia Police Department will be able to start the planning process to develop a firearms range for the Laconia Police Department. The police department currently uses the Town of Guilford Police Department range for qualifications. While the use of the Town of Guilford's range is free to the Laconia Police Department, the use of the range has to be scheduled. By developing a firearms range for the Laconia Police Department, there would be much more flexibility for Laconia police officers to train at the range. There's no fiscal impact on the city with this. Captain Alan Grattan from Laconia Police Department recommends acceptance of the donation of $25,000. It's a series of 3 motions right now. The first is to move to waive a reading of Resolution 2024-08 in its entirety to read by title only. So made by Councilor Haynes, seconded by Councilor Susie. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise. 5 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Next, looking for a motion to move a first reading of Resolution 2024-08 relative to acceptance of funds from a charitable trust, the Jensen Benevolent Fund, in the amount of $25,000 to fund the development of a firearms range for the Laconia Police Department. So made by Councilor Susie, seconded by Councilor Bogert. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. 6 votes in the affirmative. Finally, looking for a motion to move to schedule a public hearing on April 8th, 2024, during the regular city council meeting to gather public input prior to any action being taken. So made by Councilor Phelps, seconded by Councilor Bogert. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hands. 5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Moving on to item number 21B. This is an easement for Eversource power line to the solar farm at the Laconia Disposal Gardens. Kirk, you want to walk us through this just briefly?
Yeah, so up in the Weirs off the Sterling Drive area, where the solar farm is gonna be going, the Eversource needs to be able to take their lines to their distribution. To do that, they need to go through city property. They need an easement, 20 foot on either side of their power lines to be able to clear trees, get equipment in, whatever they need to do. This would give them the easement to be able to do that.
Okay, so the city, before the easement is done, the city attorney states the easement must be approved by the city council. The city leases the site to the solar farm company and has a payment in lieu of taxes agreement with the company that owns the solar farm. It's been in place for a number of years right now, just coming online. yet to come
They're
online.
still in the building process,
Yeah.
yeah, it's, so we got a little bit to go, but
Right.
it's moving along.
So looking for a motion to move that the city council approve the easement for Eversource's branch circuit to the Laconia Disposal Garden Solar Farm and authorize the city manager to sign the easement. Counselor Phelps, seconded by Counselor Bogert. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 5 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Item number 21C, ordinance 2024-235-15, amending Chapter 235 zoning relative to Article 3, Chapter 235-15, the official zoning map. Kirk, could you walk us through that one as well?
Yeah, this is the area, Old Prescott Hill, Briarcrest area. Currently it's zone of 2-acre lots. We had a request brought to the city to change the zoning so they can do 9 units per acre. So some potential development in that area. And so this went through the planning board process. Planning board, they had a public hearing. It was a very favorable hearing. They passed through to return it back to the council, and now we're looking for you to do a public hearing if you would agree to this change. So it would give us a little bit an increased opportunity for any landowner in that area to develop the land and put more housing units on there than what's currently allowed by the zoning rules.
Okay. We have a series of 3 motions in front of us. First one is looking for a motion to move to waive reading of the ordinance in its entirety and read by title only. So made by Counselor Haynes, seconded by Counselor Felch. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. 5 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Next, looking for a motion to move to first reading of ordinance 2024-235-15, amending Chapter 235 zoning relative to Article 3, Chapter 235-15, official zoning map as presented. So made by Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 5 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Finally, on this matter, looking for a motion to move to schedule a public hearing on April 8th, 2024, during the regular city council meeting to gather input prior to adoption. So made by Counselor Phelps, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes as well. Moving on to item number 21D, residents' request for the city to develop and adopt a highway program for city streets. Look to you again, Kirk?
Yeah, this is, we had some people come to Department of Public Works and ask them about doing an Adopt a Highway program. You know, I think it's a relatively simple thing, but we wanted to put it on an agenda because there would be some small dollar cost to the city. I think, you know, both Wes and I completely support this program. What we wanted to do was just bring it forward because we are spending potentially some city dollars, just to have you guys say, yes, you know, we think this is great, work through the process, and, you know, we certainly would follow up once some work is done and then let you know what's happening with it.
So you're looking for us to either give you, say, go right ahead and begin the process and get back to us with the details and maybe any costs associated with it?
I was thinking more along the lines of go ahead and do the process and let us work. The budget, the money will come out of the Public Works Department as it is. So they'd be looking for no new funding anyhow. It's more just to support the program.
What do you all think of that? Counselor Bogert?
Will they have to be insured on their own insurance policy for doing this so that the city's not responsible?
We haven't checked with Primex yet. We would confirm that with Primex.
Thank you.
Yep.
Counselor Felch?
So this is basically the same as we already have an adopted spot with Parks and Rec, right?
Similar, yep, similar.
Only it's a road instead of a
So your
spot.
motion is to go ahead and to pursue this?
Yes.
Seconded by Counselor Haynes. Any further discussion on it? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? 5 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Nicely done. Item number 21E, request to make city-owned land located on Lafayette Street, parcel number 444-126-17 conservation land. In January 2023, the city council voted to declare the city-owned land located Lafayette Street as surplus property. A subsequent request by the Laconia Conservation Commission has been made to have the 1.1 acre parcel deemed conservation land due to the vernal pools located on the property. Right now, we'll be looking for a motion to move to schedule a public hearing on April 8th, 2024 during the regular city council meeting to gather public input prior to any action being taken. So moved by Counselor Susie, seconded by Counselor Bogert. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Oh, did you have discussion?
Yeah, I just
I'm
want to
sorry
make
about that.
sure some of these things we're gonna know ahead of time, that when it was declared surplus property, it was said that it could be divided into 2 to 3 lots. I want to know where these vernal pools are, and could we still divide it into 2 or 3 lots and only declare part of it as conservation?
I can certainly bring that, any questions about that back to
I just
the next
wanted-
meeting. Yep.
Want to know that ahead.
Yep.
Fair enough. All right. That being said, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by raising your hands. 5 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Moving on to item number 21F. Request to modify items listed on the council agenda under committee reports for the Government and Operation and Ordinances Committee. Kirk, would you walk us through that?
The last time the Government Operations and Ordinance Committee met, one of the agenda items was to remove some of their items off of the agenda that we no longer need anymore, and they look to add a couple on. This requires a council vote to be able to do that. The removals are Chapter 167, the noise, and licensing for outdoor loudspeakers. They haven't had any work on any of these in a number of years, so that's why they felt this was time to come off. The vehicles and traffic parking on sublawns, grant applications, which you end up taking up as a full council pretty much 100% of the time. Scenic road motorcycle noise petition, they felt that there was no new information to continue to leave this on there. Short-term rentals, but it's only being removed because there's another bullet point under theirs that is short-term rentals of residential business anyhow, so it's redundant. And then naming privileges has been taken care of, and has already been moved on. They would like to add performance zoning, code enforcement on property maintenance, and the historic overlay district as 3 new items. So as I said, this requires a full council vote to add and subtract off this list.
Mayor?
Yes.
Kurt, there's one thing that was, I think, either not mentioned or that's not on here, is the time frame for the demolition permit.
To add to?
Yes.
Okay, so right now, I'll be looking for a motion to approve the request to modify items listed under the committee reports for the Government Operations and Ordinances Committee as presented above. So made by Counselor Felch, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Is there any further discussion about this? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. 5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes as well. Moving on to agenda item 22, unfinished business. Item number 22A, Resolution 2024-07, acceptance of funds funds from a charitable trust, the Brunkart Grantor Charitable Lead, in the amount of $15,000 to fund the development of a firearms range for the Laconia Police Department. Any thoughts on this? Should we go right to motions? Yep. Fair enough. Look at you guys go. Right, series of 3 motions. First one is to move to waive a reading of Resolution 2024-07 in its entirety and read by title only, so made by Counselor Bogart, seconded by Counselor Felch. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? 5 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Next, looking for a motion to move to second reading of Resolution 2024-07 relative to the acceptance of funds from a charitable trust, Brunkart Grantor Charitable Lead, in the amount of $15,000 to fund the development of a firearms range at the Laconia Police Department. So made by Counselor Susie, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. Finally, on this, 5 votes in the affirmative, that passed. Finally, looking for a motion to move to approve Resolution 2024-07. Let's scratch that other 07 out there. Relative to acceptance of funds from a charitable trust, the Brunkart Grantor Charitable Lead, in the amount of $15,000 to fund the development of a firearms range for the Laconia Police Department, to authorize the city manager to sign all documents related to this matter. So made by Counselor Susie, seconded by Counselor Hoffman. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands, and that is passes.
One more.
What's that?
Oh, okay.
All right, I got one more. All right, one more. No, sit. We're close. We're close. Item number 22B. Request from the New Hampshire Boat Museum to lease dock space at the city-owned Weirs Docks. Kirk, could you give us maybe some details on this? We've heard the public, heard a lot about it earlier. And what are the lease terms on this look like?
So we hadn't gone through all the lease agreement yet. What I was expecting to do is, if this passed and you were in agreement to allow them to lease dock space, we would finalize a lease and bring it back for your approval. My expectation is that it would be very similar to the paddle boats that were there last year. We worked through a lot of the issues that were concerning to you last year, as far as things like where their kiosk is going to be set up and times, of service and those types of things that would be transferable to this lease. So we would be looking for, if you're interested, in acceptance of leasing this space, and then I would bring back, hopefully as early as next meeting, a lease agreement that for your review.
If this were to pass, might it be a good idea to any lease payments received to put it in a segregated fund for the repair of those docks? For those of you who weren't here a couple years ago, we had something called a big grant, a federal grant, amounted to about $300,000 and more to rebuild the docks. Unfortunately, we took the money. I don't think it ever came to us.
No, we didn't. Right, we didn't
Right,
take.
but
right,
we
yeah.
voted to do the work and accept the money. What happened was, post-COVID, we couldn't find anybody to do it in a timely fashion, and those that were willing to do it in the future, the price was extraordinarily high.
Yeah, we are looking at any ability. I think we're outside of our window, but we are looking at either extension of it or applying for it. But we also are putting out an RFP just to find out what's the true new cost if we were going to do that project again today. And from when we got the grant till now, you can't even estimate that on your own. So we're going to try to send that out. Well, we are going to send it out and get a new dollar figure, because there's definitely some work on those docks that needs to happen.
Is that money still available? Or did we use that money someplace else?
No, we never received any money.
Oh, we never received.
No, we received the ability to get it, but never
Okay,
cash.
thank
Yeah.
you.
And I was down there the other day with the manager, and those docks right now are about at the point where they need to be completely rebuilt. So the plan that we had before is probably gone. We've done a lot of repairs already, but the boards are just getting eaten up.
I think that's the complaint, the gentleman that wrote the letter from Flightcraft. I think that was his number one concern, was that they're just not big enough to handle a boat, so there's not enough slip space. So doing something would be very well received, I think.
Yeah, and I've done a 180 on this one. I was in favor of it at first, but I've never been a boater, so now that I look at it from boaters' points of view, it's parking spaces that we're taking away from the public that turns over 5 to 6 times a day, which is bringing people in to the weirs to spend money, which if you own a boat, you usually have excess money to be spending out in the weirs with the new restaurants that are opening and the expansion that we've had in the weirs. Plus, I look at the fact that we had the dive in there. We had problems with that, but not only the problems we had with that, I mean, the people had good ideas. They're great people. I don't have a problem with them. But they were also going to add dock space for their own space. This isn't adding, this is taking away.
How much space did the pedal boats take up last year?
Probably more than what this is. Well, not probably. There's more than what they're doing, but I couldn't give you an exact number of feet that they used. It was in the least. I just can't remember.
Did we get any feedback from the public as to whether things like that it was inconveniencing people? Did any complaints about it? I guess that's my point.
Well, I think they were also in the very shallow area under the cove instead of out in our main dock, which is easily accessible, instead of going in between 2 docks where you can't fit 4 boats anymore. They're going to be right on the end, which is the easiest accessible dock out there. And taking that away from the public.
Councilor Bogart, do you have something to say?
Mostly what he covered it, the paddle boats were in a non-boating section of the dock, so it didn't have the same effect.
Councilor Haynes?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm not a boating person, but, and this has nothing to do with this subject, but just a quick question. Do they need to be, the docks need to be reconfigured?
Oh, they definitely need to be reconfigured.
Okay, that's what I.
And probably rebuilt because they're in such rough shape.
Reconfigured,
But-
as far as.
Right, and what we
distance.
had looked at with the grant was taking out every other
Finger.
finger and lengthening them, lengthening them, so we'd still have the amount of space, but people could actually get in and out. Because now if you park 2 boats, one can't get out if they're in front.
The one that's
That's the
inside
complaint.
can't get out.
That's the complaint for Flightcraft.
Yeah. Well, also, we're taking public property and renting it to an entrepreneur, somebody that's a businessman making money, whereas there's other entities out there where they could lease other dock space. We had a seaplane that wanted to come in, and they're actually going over to the pier.
No, but the boat museum is a 501c3. It's not
Yeah.
profit.
Well,
I mean,
they're charging, but, right.
No,
they're
but I want to say
nonprofit.
they're a
I
nonprofit. They want
understand that, right.
Now, does the Mount Washington pay a rental fee?
I believe them on the paperwork, they actually kinda own that.
They own.
They
that- yeah,
maintain it,
that's-
they take care
that's-
of it.
they- Right.
It's even blocked off. If you go down there, there's
Pass that
gates
down. Sure, thank you.
between their property. Yeah.
Down to Katie, please. All right. The motion before us is, we're looking for a motion to move to authorize the city manager to negotiate the terms of the lease with the New Hampshire Boat Museum for 30 feet of dock space at the Weirs Docks as requested, and to bring this matter back to the city council at a future date for final approval.
May I ask one more question? You had mentioned taking the profits from this and you were leading into a separate account. Is that something that has to be said tonight, or is that?
No, I don't thi-
Because I kind of like that idea of putting the money away for,
Well, you know, we gotta get the
Saving
money
for the re-
someplace to do some of this work. I mean, I'd almost like to see, what's the lease agreement look like? How much for the season? And, you know, does it make a difference? In other words, if it's just small dollars and it doesn't seed that fund or allow us to do necessary repairs, I don't know. I'm just looking for options here, but.
I think the Ways Action Committee too has to participate sometime.
I'm gonna say that I think people need to look, we need more information. If people haven't read what Ryan wrote to us, they need to read it. So I make a motion to table.
Motioning to table, is there a second to table this?
I'll
You-
second it.
Second by Counselor Bogart. There is, it's non-debatable. All those in favor of the motion to table, please indicate by raising your hands. Opposed? 3-2, the motion's tabled. I think this needs a little more detail to see if it makes sense to folks. We'll follow up on it this week. I'd like to adjourn the city council meeting of March 25th, 2024, 9:55 PM.